clear space to cover for Milroe. Still looking. Firing. Near corner. It's caught! Touchdown, Alabama! Isaiah Bond!
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Play action for Ward. He pumps. He throws open in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Washington State. Donovan Ollie.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Spencer Rattler wants to launch a deep one, and it is caught! Juice Wells all the way, touchdown Gamecocks! 72 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Sanders looking wide open, touchdown, Dylan Edwards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Here's Sanders on first down. He's got a lane. He's down the sideline. Turning on the Jets. Rocket Sanders. Shaking off tacklers. Rumbling inside the 30. And just like that, the Razorback crowd back in. 46 yards.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
PJ's going to airlift it. He airlifts it long, and it is caught at midfield. Bolden with the big catch. Nice. Over the back shoulder. It's good for 40.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Busy schedule today. TCU football coach Sonny Dykes will join us here in less than 15 minutes. Mack Rhoades in studio. He will join us in just over an hour. We will also hear from Rob Bolton on the upcoming PGA Championship week. Craig's off the radar. Neil Blackman from Saturday Down South and John McClain Hall of Fame columnist. Paul's Top 5. Good afternoon, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak, Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross. James was here a minute ago, intern James, and also Emery Winter. Hope you've had a really, really, really good day. So this is the time, and Craig was saying this to me at the end of yesterday's show, when a lot of different schedules come out, not the games because we know those, but let's go down a list of a couple of things that were released yesterday, late yesterday evening or today. Fox's big noon kickoff schedule. Look at those games. Texas and Michigan, Alabama, Wisconsin, Michigan and Ohio State. Of course, that's way down the road, but those are some of the big noon Saturday games that they will have, and it's just interesting to see. We'll show you in a minute what ESPN has coming up too.
Yeah, not surprised that Fox is going to take any chance they get the SEC in their draft, but Texas and Alabama being on Fox with Gus and Joel Klatt should be fun to watch. Michigan, I mean, I don't know who their quarterback's going to be, but, they got a new head coach. So maybe if this game was played a year ago, it might have been a little bit more intriguing on the outset, but it still might be because Texas rolling into the big house, something – I don't know if they've ever even played there before.
I don't know if they've ever played. I think they've played, but whether it's been in Ann Arbor or not, I know Paxton early on was a minute ago in the chat room. He's gone to go play golf. Craig, your thoughts about that schedule?
Yeah, I mean, it looks fun. Those are some big-time games. I think Texas-Michigan has an opportunity to be a massive ratings grab. All three will be Michigan, Ohio State, of course, but Texas and Michigan, I think if you were saying, let's take the two biggest fan bases, the most watched fan bases, I think, off the top of my head, they're both like top 3, top 5, at worst, I would assume, based on the size of their fan bases and the typical ratings draw that you see them get in big games. So, yeah, I think that'll be a massive, massive Saturday for Fox and for Big Noon. So, that one's I'm very much looking forward to. Although, Michigan's not the same Michigan as last. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's not even on the sidelines anymore, so that does take something out of it. But that's still the brand and new staff, new excitement level, coming off the national title, being at home. That'll be a big deal. Alabama, Wisconsin, I mean, that's another nice matchup. I think that'll be really fun out in Camp Randall a week later. Another Big Ten SEC matchup when you start to look at those two kind of, forming whatever they might form in the future, or whatever people assume that they might form. Like, these are the types of games that you think of when you think of what those two going against each other looks like. So I think both of those are great right out of the gates. And then, I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, it's simply called the game. It speaks for itself. I don't really need to add too much to that other than no matter where both find themselves, obviously this is a year where Ohio State needs to win this game again, because it's been a little bit, and certainly Michigan not just beating them but winning a national title on top of that makes it sting that much worse. So that's always going to be a big draw, and those other two will be as well. So yeah, that's fun to see that, and to see that's kind of percolating and getting more on the radar now, the actual games themselves.
Well, one thing, Texas beat Michigan. The year before they won the national title, Vince Young had like 400 yards of total offense, 38-37 in the Rose Bowl. The year before was January 1st of 2005 that set up, of course, the run they made the next year when they had an early game against Ohio State in Columbus and won that game. So that was the only time that those two teams have ever met, was in the Rose Bowl in 2005.
Yeah, and that was the launching pad, as you said. That was the launching pad to Vince Young and that team winning the national title the next year. So that Rose Bowl was absolutely massive in the history of Texas football, not only because of what it meant at the time, but then what it led into just a year later. And to think that those two programs who were pretty much just name a category, they're probably top 10. Michigan, if not, number one, or Texas number one in some of those. I know Michigan, I think all-time wins, if you don't count, the Ivy Leagues especially. They're usually at the top of a lot of the older, going back 100 years type of rankings. And to think that with all that history, with those two, respectively, to have only played one time, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's really surprising. So I'm sure that will be a note that they amplify and really play up in the lead up of just how unique this matchup is, to only be occurring for the second time ever and for the first time ever in the regular season, and obviously because of that, the first time ever in Ann Arbor. So that's history making, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Here are some of the games. ESPN, the first game, a Thursday night game between North Dakota State and Colorado. Then you have Clemson, Georgia, the first full Saturday, followed by Miami and Florida, Notre Dame at A&M, and I think that's where College Game Day will probably be.
It is.
Sunday, LSU, USC. LSU and Florida State have done some great games on Sunday evenings, and then Florida State will be Monday night against Boston College, which I believe is Labor Day Monday. So there's the first weekend of what ESPN has lined up.
That Clemson-Georgia game is going to be really interesting to watch, because if there's a game that Dabo's going to, put a highlighter on the calendar to shut up Tyler from Spartanburg, I think that's the one right there. And he can quiet a lot of doubters if he can get one over Georgia to start the season. Unfortunately for the Gators, their season of dear God, can we get a break, starts against Miami in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, Deion's obviously a draw. North Dakota State, make that interesting. They'd be America's favorite team right out of the gates if they could rattle the cage of Deion and the Buffs. But obviously they're going to be a pull until they're not. We saw that last year. They were a big pull so long as they won those first few games, and then they kind of petered out, and so did the television coverage and all that. But I think that's a great spotlight for the Buffs as a program to get their season started off and have a national slot in front of the entire country. And now being in the Big 12, there's that element of it as well, paying a little bit closer attention to what they've been doing just in terms of where they kind of fit into the bigger picture. So there's definitely some intriguing things about that game. Clemson, Georgia, Paul listed out some of the reasons as to why that's intriguing. I mean, just those two names next to each other on paper, that's two teams that have combined to win, 4 national titles here in recent years. So those are two big boys, even though Clemson right now feels like they're kind of swinging up more so than seeing eye to eye. And maybe this will be another one of those games where we kind of see just exactly where Clemson is compared to where they've been in years past. But that ought to be really fun. Miami, Florida speaks for itself. Notre Dame, A&M, super intriguing with Mike Elko now there as head coach, and Marcus Freeman and company obviously have had some success and want more. So I like that game a lot as far as being the college game day stop. That makes a lot of sense because that's a juicy matchup. USC, LSU, great. Boston College, Florida State. It's not the sexiest Monday night matchup to cap off the weekend. I don't really.
And that's 2 weeks after the game in Dublin?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Look, I'll tell you this. It damn well better not be sexy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like the list is like, oh, awesome. And then it's like, oh, that's cool. We'll see a conference game right out of the gates. But, it's not Florida State LSU, that's for sure. All due respect to Boston College. Fill in 100 teams in that spot, it's not going to look that great after the list of games we just went over. But, yeah, that'll still be cool to see, a conference game that has some meaning right out of the gates for both of those programs. And obviously Florida State with a lot to live up to after last year.
All right, one note about Baylor. They've added yet another offensive lineman, Sidney Fugar, who comes in from South Carolina, 6'5", 325-pound offensive lineman, started 4 games last year, 3 of them early for the Gamecocks. He entered the portal. He's from Connecticut. He played at Western Illinois for a couple of years, and Baylor now has 4 players who have come into the portal to join their roster on the offensive line, a position that they desperately needed to fill some holes and also plug some gaps as well. And they get Fugar from South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, he's on his 3rd school, so we need a little bell for that ding of just that's the norm now. Everybody on school number 3. I don't have, super expectations. Congratulations to this young man. Congratulations to the staff on landing an offensive lineman, knowing that they have a pressing need there, not just for actual starting performance, but just in general, their depth and all that comes with that. So this was a big get just for that simple purpose. But he's got a couple years to play, so hopefully he can morph into a contributor or maybe even a starter at some point. But, don't have, crazy expectations. This doesn't change the trajectory by any means, but it was a need that they addressed. So, yeah, congratulations to him on his decision. And, hopefully he comes to Waco ready to work because Lord knows they need the help and they need to work because it's pretty clear what the message is going into this season. It's like you win or this thing's turning over. So, we'll see. But Mason Miller's done a lot in a short amount of time as far as trying to add players to that room. And so I don't know if you get optimistic when you have that many new faces or if it doesn't really matter because you were so bad to begin with that anything new is a help, but that's certainly a room that remains in progress. But that's good to see another body added to it.
Garrett, we'll get to the wins and losses and all that later on. It may be even after Sonny Dykes. We'll do that later in this hour. Here's an interesting story. The Pac-12 has, in fact, come up with a deal for Oregon, or the Pac-2, for both Oregon State and also for Washington State when it comes to the CW, and also with Fox to broadcast those 2 teams' home football games. So they will be on TV. We've kind of mentioned a little bit about that.
Didn't we talk about this 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, they did, but it's now official. Yeah. The Packers announced it. It's inked the deal now for those 2 teams to have home games on the CW and Fox.
I wonder what CW's next step is in the college football world. I mean, they're trying to redo their whole brand, and when we had Jim Williams on, he mentioned that one of the good things about the CW, the benefit it has is everybody pretty much has it all over the country. Everybody's got a CW. No matter what cable you're on or whatever, if you're not on cable, if it's over the air, you can get CW. So there's some benefit to being on the CW. Obviously, there's not as much money in that as there is on ESPN or Fox or CBS or NBC, but it's still intriguing, and there can be more. I'm also waiting for the next wave of what Turner does, and we'll see how that goes out now that a lot of their stuff is streaming on Max. There's about to be this Max, Hulu, and Disney Plus kind of package that you can buy as well, which again just turns into cable again. And then what they do when it comes to sports, especially if they lose the NBA to NBC,
they're irrelevant.
Yeah, then they're going to have to maybe jump into the college football game a little bit more than they have. So
yeah, I mean possibly. I don't know how much is out there to go grab though. That's the thing now at this point.
And they are turning. True TV is going to eventually completely turn into their sports channel. So they've moved True TV stuff now to TBS. So True TV is going to be Turner Sports or whatever it's going to be. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of cabinet full of goods they have to be able to sell a whole network sports-wise. But, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little bit of an updated story from a week or two ago when we talked about how a number of their games had been selected to be broadcast on Fox, and I think we were talking about that is the last time we touched on this. So this is just, more fleshing out of the full schedule, and good for them. I mean, the CW got football after all, and I know they had it already. They already had the ACC games, but, adding a little West Coast flavor certainly can't hurt their grouping of offers. So to have Oregon State, Washington State, and the games that come with that, I think is a good deal for all parties. And I know those two being out on that island, so to speak, by themselves, you were at one point in time wondering where their games were even going to be carried. I mean, that was a legitimate question. And so now they've, over the course of a couple different stories in this last month, been able to answer all those questions, it seems like. So that's great. They're going to use the Pac-12's facilities to produce these games. So, I mean, they're still going to get use out of those and then I guess sell them off afterwards. I'm not sure what happens with all of that, but they are still going to be useful for at least this upcoming season. So that's good. And then as we know, after that, barring some information that drops between now and the end of the season, all bets are off following that. But they're shaping up nicely considering the hand that they were dealt. As far as games being broadcast and finding opponents and all that stuff, it's fallen into place. Even though I'm sure it's been quite difficult to answer all those questions as expediently as you needed to. So yeah, good for them. All right.
Also, one basketball note. This was interesting. Doug Gottlieb, who we've had on the show, men's basketball analyst. He is now going to take over the job at University of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Wisconsin-Green Bay as the head basketball coach. And one of the interesting nuggets here, and I sent him a text to congratulate him, haven't heard back because it's not official, he probably can't say anything, is that he will apparently be able to continue to do his afternoon talk show on Fox Sports. But Doug Gottlieb taking over at the University of Green Bay at Wisconsin.
I get that it's a novel idea to have a guy doing, and he does 3 hours like we do every day. So I know it's a novel idea for him to keep doing that, but I have a feeling that Doug Gottlieb's not going to be on that show most days.
Yes, a very interesting hire. Obviously, he's a polarizing name, and he's got his detractors, he's got his supporters. So, for a guy who talks a lot of basketball, I mean, sports in general, but a lot of basketball, I mean, here's an example of somebody actually going, you go coach then. It's like, all right, well, we're going to see Doug Gottlieb coach, see what that looks like, and see how all of his expertise translates. But that was certainly not a headline I was expecting to see, although I've seen his name kicked around for coaching jobs over the years, and I don't know how close it's ever really come to fruition before, but I'm intrigued by I'm not so much going to tune in now because of that, but I will, be, I guess, mindful of what they're doing a little bit more because of who the head coach is and just, seeing how he does. I totally don't get the show thing. That must be like some ego right there. It's like that you just still need to be able to talk and have your platform and do all that, which I don't mean like disrespectfully. I just think like, why else would you do that?
Yeah.
Because you don't need to. You don't. You just must really love doing it, or you love the platform. Because otherwise, I feel like you'd have your hands pretty full with that job, especially taking 3 hours out of your day every weekday when you could be doing any number of things for the program. So that's definitely an interesting choice that puts a little more nuance onto the hire itself. So yeah, that's very interesting to see how that goes. And I do wonder if by the end of the season he's still hosting that radio show. And shoot, if he's hosting it and they're winning, then
yeah,
he can just dunk on everybody and say, "See, I told you so." But yeah, that's a strange choice from my standpoint.
All right, let's do the wins and losses, Big 12, as we await Coach Dykes to join us on Zoom up in Fort Worth. This is from Circus Sports. Is that the one you have up? Yep. Circus Sports and Casino in Vegas. In alphabetical order, Arizona, of the teams favored or the odds that they'll have at least 6 wins or more, Arizona, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, Utah, and West Virginia. So a nice chunk of them. I think that's 9 teams out of the 16, is that right, that show that they're going to win at least 7 games or 6 games or more to be bowl eligible.
Yeah, that's a nice chunk. And look, the Big 12 is all of college football this year is going to be a land of mystery because of the
That's
just
actually
gigantic.
10. I'm sorry, 10. Yeah.
But The Big 12, is the most evenly matched league where we can't say it's top heavy. We have no idea. we have no idea, how this is going to go, how teams are going to look. And, you throw the fact that rosters are completely in flux all over the country, and, you can kind of, walk into some really good decisions or walk into some really bad ones that everybody else would have made. So it's really hard to say. Baylor at 5, I think, is about right. For right now, until we see what this new look offense looks like and what the defense looks like being called by Dave Aranda. But there's some intrigue in this league this year about who can rise to the top the fastest.
Yeah, I don't have the full list. We got partial here.
Yeah, go to the second page.
8. Yeah, here's the second.
Okay, here's the second 8. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I mean it's
every one of them, Craig, are bowl eligible according to Vegas before the season begins.
Yeah, it's probably better when we do these in the future to do like the actual, like, not alphabetized, but like the numbers, just because you can kind of see it easier as far as like the trend of who's.
I think it is the numbers.
No, I'm talking like ordered by numbers, like 9.5 is together.
Yeah, that is.
No, you're talking about top to bottom, Paul. He's talking about like.
I'm talking about like.
All right.
The most wins expected to the lowest wins expected in order. Okay. That's what I'm talking about.
Sometimes we do that, and sometimes we don't. But that you're right.
I'm saying for an exercise like this, it's easier to look at from my standpoint. But I mean it's cool to look at, and there's a lot of interesting tidbits you can take from all these. The one I saw earlier was slightly different than this, and
well, we got that one too.
Okay, well,
Brett McMurphy from Action Network HQ. Here are the teams, and they have them from top to bottom based on number of wins. K-State, Utah, and then Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and TCU, Texas Tech. UCF, all in a huge clump at 7.5. West Virginia, and then the cutoff with Baylor, Cincy, Colorado, ASU, BYU, and also Houston at under 6 wins.
I'm willing to bang the over on West Virginia. I would. And I'll take under on Oklahoma State and everything else I don't want to talk about right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
You're going to take the over on West Virginia and Mike Gundy.
And West Virginia, I'm going to take the under on Mike Gundy.
Is there any particular reason why you're refraining from anything else?
I just – no, I mean,
or you just don't know. Like, that's fine,
I just don't know as much, but I've formulated my opinions about them a little bit better. And I
gotta hope Wet Blanket's not watching.
I know I keep doubting. I am just underwhelmed. Like, I think a second year of Alan Bowman's not going to be great. I think that he's easy to figure out. And Ollie Gordon's fantastic, and they've got really good wide receivers. I just think that a second year with a seventh-year quarterback that's not going to get any better, to me, is not going to help them.
What if he's the same?
I think that's the problem. I think if he's the same,
I'll take the hell out of over on Oklahoma State.
I know most people will, and I think Gundy's fantastic.
That's fine. No, I'm just saying I'll take the over on Oklahoma State.
I'm a huge doubter into I don't like the 7th-year quarterback thing. I don't know. I want people on the up.
Okay.
And he's not on the up. Like, this is his last year of playing organized football.
It's been like this, and so he's right here now. Yeah. We'll see if he goes sideways or up or down. Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's that's what I was talking about, just the order. I think it's just easier to look at this, kind of like separate them from who the contenders are versus the those who are doubtful to make bowl games, which, I know Houston with the coaching change, I can understand that to some extent. If BYU's only around the 4.5 mark in regular season, that's really bad news, you would think, for Kalani Sitake. Not how you've wanted this Big 12 tenure to start off with, so that's definitely something to eye. The low expectations out in Provo, but I mean, we could dissect this. I mean, Baylor at 5.5. That's where they are in every book, basically, because they are a borderline bowl team. Colorado at 5.5. I'm sure that'll be really intriguing for a lot of people. If they were to be around that mark, I think that's obviously going to be massively disappointing if you're in Boulder, Colorado. Not what you're hoping for in year number 2, but I mean, just we could go through the entire summer and unpack these one by one, because there's so many teams, though, in each league. It's hard to run them all down. But I think it's pretty clear that K-State and Utah are kind of separating themselves as the favorites and a lot of eyes nationally. And then, there's KU and Arizona most of the time pulling up in 3 and 4. So I think that's pretty much established itself that those are kind of the favorites with an Iowa State or an Oklahoma State as those teams you say, yeah, they could get in the mix as well. I think beyond that, everybody else is kind of more of a pipe dream that some things would have to break their way or just some big surprises. But, yeah, that top group seems to have really, it's not set in stone, but it's pretty close to it at this point. And K-State, Utah, I think would be the logical choice for most people on paper to be that matchup at the end of the year.
We'll do this all summer long. And Garrett, we're still not connected yet with Coach Dykes?
I think we're getting it right now. Hang on.
Okay, all right. So one of the interesting notes is, of course, with Colorado, that start they had last year, they ended up going, 4-8 at 5.5. Somebody wants you to bet that they're a bowl team, whether it's Cincinnati, Baylor, or Colorado. And there we are with that. We're now joined by TCU football coach Sonny Dykes on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul and David Smoak. Coach, thank you very much for your time today. How much was the offseason for you after what 2 years ago was like, and then last year when things kind of went sideways? How much of that did eat at you, or are you one of those that kind of like washes it out and moves on?
Not really. I mean, there's obviously a lot to learn really over the last two off seasons. When you go someplace, you try to get a feel for your team. And we came out of spring ball in 2022 thinking we had a chance to have a good team, but we had some huge voids in terms of our roster. And we only had 5, scholarship D linemen on the entire team. And so we had some issues, and we were able to go out in the transfer portal and find some people that could help us immediately and really contribute to that team and kind of fill in where we needed to. Then we got rated pretty good. I mean, we lost our roster. We had a lot of guys a lot of seniors in that group, a lot of experience. And then we had, I believe it was 7 juniors that declared early for the NFL draft that year. So we lost really a senior class and then pretty much all of our junior class as well. Coming out of spring last year, we were a completely different team, and a lot of new faces between high school players and a big number in the transfer portal, probably more than we wanted, but we needed to fill in. And then we got to fall camp and we felt like we were behind. We got a late start last year coming off the national championship game. Our players, we got back on like Thursday, I think, or maybe Wednesday, and our players started school the following Monday, and most of those kids had never even been home, because we stayed straight through the holidays, straight through Christmas. And so we had to give our players some time off. So we gave those guys a couple of weeks to get resettled. And so we felt like we were playing catch up last spring. And so obviously this spring we had an 8-week training window where our guys could train. We went into spring ball, coming off of spring break and had really 5 good days leading up to our practice and just felt like a different football team. Felt like we were much more settled. We were able to maintain most of our roster, so that helped. And so, every spring, really, this was our third. All of them have been completely different than the one before, but I think that we felt like, this was the best spring practice that we had, certainly the most settled. And so, we're coming out of spring feeling pretty good about our team and excited to add a couple of players in the portal, but really add 13 freshmen that'll be here as well. So excited about getting to work with those guys in June.
Coach, for Josh Hoover, he was thrown to the fire last year, and I know that was not plan A, but you guys have pivoted off of plan A and successfully before. But to have that experience, even though like there were some rocky times, and then to be, know that you're kind of the guy in spring, how much more valuable is that for him to be able to piece those two things together now?
Yeah, Josh, as you said earlier, Josh had some moments last fall where he looked really good. I mean, his first start was against BYU and he threw for over 400 yards, like 450 if I'm not mistaken, and really got off to a good start and really had some really good moments. I mean, really played well second half against Texas, but we were kind of up and down really as a team and never really established any kind of identity offensively. And as you said, it was a good learning experience for him because he had to deal with a lot of adversity and, we never really got settled. So he was completely different. He did not go through spring ball. He had a little minor surgery, so he missed all of spring football this year. But he looked really good leading up to spring ball. He'll be available, June 1st once we kind of start, working with our players a little bit over the summer. And so he'll be available then. And, he missed the spring reps, but we were able to get Ken Seals, a transfer from Vanderbilt who started 22 games there, a lot of reps, and Haas Haney, the quarterback from Aledo, that was such a good high school player. Those guys got to split reps, and they had a really good spring, and we feel good about those two guys. And we'll get Josh back June 1st, and hopefully he'll pick up where he left off. And and it's going to be really important for us to get stabilized at that quarterback position, though. Everybody in football knows how important that position is. You're not going to have a good football team if you don't get good quarterback play. So it's going to be really important for us to feel settled there.
Coach, I don't know if delicate is the right word, but speaking of that quarterback room, it seems like the days of having, 4 scholarship quarterbacks on a roster, that's just a pure luxury that not many folks are going to be able to enjoy anymore. Is it more delicate handling a quarterback room these days, knowing the demand that's out there, knowing the want-to for playing time and the options that players now have, or is it more similar to the old ways than maybe I think?
No, I think you're probably right. I think delicate's probably a pretty good way to put it. It's such a weird time in college football right now. And, gone are the days like we had at Texas Tech when I was there with Mike Leach where, Cliff Kingsbury was a 3-year starter. And then we had B.J. Simmons that started for 1 year that threw for 5,200 yards, I believe, and 52 touchdowns. And then, and he was a 5th-year senior. And then we had Sonny Cumbie was a 5th-year senior. And then we had Cody Hodges was a 5th-year senior. And so we just had great success with those quarterbacks because, they came and they sat behind somebody, they learned, they got a lot of reps, and they took over that job and they were ready to play. And now, as you talked about earlier, you just don't have that luxury anymore. We had Josh was a redshirt freshman. He was our backup last season. And, Chandler Morris decided to move on. And all of a sudden, you look up and we're sitting there with 1 scholarship quarterback, and that can be pretty scary. So we needed to go find somebody in the portal, and we were fortunate to find Ken Seals, and he fit perfectly. He's from Weatherford. He really wanted to be at TCU. He's got a couple of years of eligibility, and then, he's a guy that you feel really comfortable with him going and starting a game. And then, you have this young guy that's really exciting and dynamic with Haas Haney. So we feel really good having 3 quarterbacks. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that go into the season with 2 maybe, and probably only 1 that they feel really good about. And so it's just a different time, as you said, now than it used to be. It used to be you kind of came in and you learned the offense, you paid your dues, and, you might start 2-3 years or 1 or 2 years. And now, guys want to play immediately. So it does make it a little strange. I know this past year, I think over half the starting quarterbacks in college football were transfers. And so it's a whole new world out there. And I think you better keep up or you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, it can look at it and go, this isn't right, whatever. But is it almost a daily thing, Coach, that you see something about the portal, NIL, whatever it might be, the future of college football? Is it wear you down at all or not?
Not at all. I see it as opportunity, really. I think that you have to view it that way is you have to find a way to make it work for you and your program. I mean, it doesn't do any good to sit and complain about something. And, our approach has always been, okay, whatever the rules are, we're going to play by the rules, but let's figure out a way to optimize that and look at it as a situation that can be advantageous for us. And, we did that at SMU prior to coming here, and we took a lot of transfers really before the transfer portal even started. And we got Shane Buechele, which changed our program. Shane came over from Texas, and all of a sudden he gave us credibility at SMU. We started winning ball games. We had that guy that we needed to play that position. And so, you're crazy if you don't do that. I mean, I think you have to figure out how to make it work for your program. And everybody's not going to be armed with a lot of NIL money. And so you got to figure out how to find your niche, and you better be able to find your niche when it comes to the transfer portal. And you also better do a really good job recruiting high school players and building your program with high school players. But you have to balance all of it, and you have to look at it as an opportunity and not a curse. And I think, you got to wake up and be excited about it. And so, for us, I know this, we would not have had a chance to play for a national championship in 2022 had we not taken a number of transfers that came in and played for us. And so, it gave us a chance to win a college football playoff game, compete for a Big 12 championship, and go play for a national championship. And so, we've tried to use it to our advantage whenever possible.
TCU football coach Sonny Dykes with us right now on 365 Sports.
Coach, you lost Amani Bailey to the draft, and you've lost a lot of running back talent in the last couple years, but you've been able to replace it. How do you feel about the depth in that room, and did you consider taking a transfer, or were you confident going in with the guys that you had?
We felt good about it going into spring. I think we felt really good coming out of spring. We really like our guys. Cam Cook is a young back that played some last year as a true freshman. We think he has a chance to be the next great TCU running back. He had a really productive spring. He's that big play kind of home run hitter that we love to have at that position. But he's also runs hard and runs with his pads low and finishes runs. And then Trent Battle, a guy that's been here, really had a great spring as well. Nate Palmer graduated early and went through spring ball from right around here in Fort Worth area. And he had an outstanding spring. We think he's got a chance to be a really, really good running back. And then Trey Sanders is a transfer that we got a couple of years ago. And Trey was healthy for the first time this spring. So we really feel like we're 4 deep at that position. We got a really dynamic freshman coming in as well. But we love the running back room. The great thing about that room is they're all different. They all bring something different to the table. Trey's more of a power runner, and Trent's more of a guy that can do it all. And so anyway, it's a good group, and it was a little bit of a concern going into spring ball. And I think coming out of spring ball, we felt like it has a chance to be one of the strongest positions on our team.
You lost a great player in Jared Wiley down from this area in Temple. You've got another great tight end, though, in Drake Dabney, who we watched down here for the past few seasons. Excited to see what he does for you guys. But we talked to Jared, I guess, the last time at that Big 12 Combine up in Frisco. And he kind of, in talking about last season, said we had the talent, just that he felt part ownership amongst some of the other veterans, that you didn't maybe have quite the leadership that you had that year prior on the great run, which is understandable because you lost so many guys. But do you feel like that leadership void, if there was one, has started to get filled again? And how are you kind of going about that process of trying to push forward leadership with this year's team? Yeah.
Well, number one, we were so lucky to have Jared. I mean, he was such a good player for us, so productive. A great teammate, a great player, a guy that tried to take on a leadership role and did a good job of it. And I appreciate his viewpoint. And I think he's right. I do feel like that we had a team last year that didn't reach our potential. And I think that's, you don't ever want to have that kind of team as a coach, and it's really the one of the few times in my career that I felt like our team, just didn't compete at the level that we needed to week in and week out. And so very frustrating year for all of us. And I think Jared was right. I mean, I think the if you don't have leadership, you have to fill the void as coaches. And we did a poor job. I did a poor job of preparing those guys to lead. We felt like that the group the year before was so strong that the leadership, I think, would have carried over a little bit more, and it just didn't for whatever reason. And again, I think that begins and ends really with my responsibility. And I think we learned from it, made the adjustments. And I think now we feel very strong about this group, and the leadership that we have. And, I think this is a good group of players. They like each other. They care about each other. They're invested together. I think we had a little bit of, what's in it for me stuff last year, and that happens sometimes when again, you don't provide the kind of guidance and leadership that we should have. And so, we feel strong about this group, but you know how it is. You really don't know until you hit your first hard times. And the group in 2022 always responded. The group last year didn't respond consistently enough to have a great season.
Sonny, with the future of college football, and I know we just got a couple more minutes left with you, how much do you pay attention about any possible separation? I know the G5s, they're looking at some options too. And I read an article in Mike Craven with Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine about what you may have said there. But is that something that's on your radar right now, or do you have too much on your mind to worry about it?
Well, I think the thing that you try to control is the stuff you can control, and I certainly don't have any control over that. Although I do think it's coming. I mean, I think it's probably coming much more quickly than people realize. I think we're at some point in the near future, we're going to have to settle these lawsuits, and when the lawsuits get settled, we can't just say, okay, we're going to continue with the same model. There's going to have to be a new model, and and to me, the new model is probably going to include revenue sharing with the players. And then you're going to have to be able to revenue share to this degree that the NCAA, whatever that number is, I've heard the number to be $20 million. If that's the case, that's the case. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be in, I guess, what I would call the Premier League or the Power Five or whatever you want to call it, or Power Four. And so, I don't know that anybody knows exactly what it's going to look like. I do think that there is going to be a separation. And I think it's going to be hard on programs, and some programs that have been really very good programs through the years are going to have a difficult time, meeting the financial goals. And it's got nothing to do with really the success of the programs. It has so much to do more with fundraising and revenue generation and all these things that, a lot of people deem more important than success. I don't know that I view it that way, but I think that's the way it's headed. And I think it's probably headed that way more quickly than we all want it to. And, I think just because you understand or you believe that's going to be the new reality, that's certainly not what I'm in favor of. You know what I mean? I think college football has been so special because you have teams that maybe haven't had the most resources or maybe have not traditionally had the most success that have had these great runs. You think about the run Boise State had. You think about the run, TCU had for a long number of years under Coach Patterson. And these programs kind of raised themselves up and elevated the program. And we were fortunate enough to get in the Big 12, which gave TCU a ton more credibility. And again, that had a lot to do with Gary and his staff and the success that they had. And so, it's a complicated time in college football, but I do believe there is going to be a separation. And I do believe it's probably going to be sooner than later.
Coach, one more thing from me. How much of transfer portal recruiting is preventative or not preventative, preemptive on your part to where you're like, we don't know where this position in particular is gonna land when it comes to people going in, so we need to be ahead of the game?
Yeah, I think you have to try to project that the best you can. I think that number one thing you have to do is you have to have a good culture in your program. You have to have a program where the players feel like that they're getting better, that they have the resources that they need to be successful and compete at the highest level. You also have to have a program where the players know that you care about them more than just players, that you are invested in them as people, and that you care about their education, you care about their health, you care about their families, you care about their well-being. If they don't feel that, then they're not going to stay at your institution. And if you can do those things, and you have a capacity to raise some money from an NIL perspective, then I think you can keep most of your roster year in, year out. And I think the most important part of that is the things I talked about first, is just the players, waking up every day saying, okay, look, this university, this coaching staff, my teammates are pouring into me, and I have a chance to be as good as I can be. My strength coach is going to push me. The academic support's going to push me. I'm going to get to eat the right kind of meals. I'm going to get the right kind of medical attention. All the things that allow me as a player to be the best I can be, I have those things at my disposal. Okay, well then if I have that, okay, let's talk about now the next part, which is the financial part of this. And so I think everybody thinks that it's all about the money. And I think in some cases it is. I think we all know adults that are friends of ours or relatives or part of our family where it's all about the money as well when they consider job opportunities. And so, these kids aren't any different than anybody else. And sometimes if a financial situation becomes really, really good, then they have to move on. That happened to us. We lost the defensive lineman, Dom Williams, where he had a chance to go really take care of his family, financially. And he did, and went to another institution and got paid a lot of money to do that. And, and I certainly don't fault Dom for doing that. And I wish him the best. And so that's going to happen. But I do believe that if you'll pour into your players and you believe and they believe you're improving them, then I think you can retain them. And I think that's the most important part. And then you project the best you can after that. But we all want to keep our roster because we've poured a lot of resources and time and effort into making these young men better players and better people and better students. And we would prefer for them to stay with us and graduate. I think most coaches feel that way. But at the same time, you better be prepared, when someone does decide to move on.
Last question, a follow-up about what you mentioned with the Big 12 or what you've done at TCU, what Boise State did. Can you imagine any of the teams or the Big 12 being left behind? Do you feel like enough commitment and enough energy and enough of what they've done with Brett Yormark and company will keep them where they have every time we work out in August, you have a chance to win a national title with the big boys?
Yes, I have complete faith in Brett Yormark and what he's been able to do in the Big 12. Look, I think had Brett not moved, the TV revenue discussions, TV contract discussions ahead of the Pac-12, they could have very easily have gone the other way. But I think Brett had great vision. I think Brett understood the timing of it all. I think he's a tremendous leader. And I think that we're very fortunate in the Big 12 that he was our commissioner at that time, because I think it would have gotten very precarious had he not have been our commissioner. And so I have tremendous belief in him. I think there's a number of schools that probably feel with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the league that they can become kind of the top of the heap. And, I'm sure Baylor feels that way. I'm sure TCU feels that way. I'm sure Texas Tech feels that way. There's a lot of schools, Central Florida, Oklahoma State, that feel like they have the resources to be at the top of the heap. And then the new schools coming in, Utah's and Arizona State's and those folks. So, look, I think the Big 12 is going to be very, very competitive. I think it's going to be a better conference than people think moving forward. I think that there's great parity in the league. There's been 6 different teams that have represented the league in the conference championship game the last 3 years. So it's a very competitive league with a lot of really good football teams and very strong leadership. So I feel really good about where the Big 12 sits right now.
Sonny, thanks for your time, a bunch of it, too. We appreciate it. We'll see you in Vegas at Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah, I apologize. I was running a little bit late. I apologize.
No.
Just a couple of stadiums, Coach. That's all you need to do.
No, just a couple, yeah. Thank you very much. Enjoy whatever downtime you get between now and then. We'll see you there in Vegas. That's Sonny Dykes, a good 25 minutes or so with us on 365 Sports. And truth serum in a lot of different ways, the way things are. Use it instead of what is going on left and right. Use it as an opportunity with the different rules that are there right now. And also the follow-up about the Big 12 with what Yormark did and his opinion about, had he not done it, then you might be seeing a couple of schools in the Big 12 being attached to the CW and Fox for their home games only.
Yeah, good stuff there from Coach Dykes. Appreciate his time. Appreciate him joining us. Know they got a lot going on. And I was curious to ask him about that Jared Wiley comment just about the leadership and whether or not they feel like that's been answered. So sounds as though it has, and if so, then that bodes well for TCU because that was more of the issue last year than I think the talent itself was. So I'd expect, so long as somebody or somebody's grabbed those reins and can kind of be the Trey Tomlinsons or the Max Duggans and Quentin Johnstons and all those types of guys they had. Not so much the on-the-field part, but the off-the-field, then they could be back, and they could be back in the bowl game, I think, in short order. So that'll be the key for them more so than I think the talent part of it. It was also interesting, I feel like we ask a lot of the kind of the obvious stuff, obvious about NIL. That's just a constant in every interview that these guys do and every conversation that you have about college nowadays. But the quarterback room, as obvious as it is that you can't keep it together, I was still glad to be able to ask somebody, especially somebody like Kim, who's had experience with having what the luxury was to have your 4 quarterbacks as he outlined and build them up. And, same thing was happening here at Baylor. Seth Russell's not sticking around behind Bryce Petty in this era. He's getting offered $1 million to go play it wherever, and not sitting back. And so, just interesting to hear his thoughts on how it is to have to kind of massage your roster, but in particular that quarterback room, because guys are being pulled in directions because so many schools want players and playing time, and especially at that position. So, yeah, it's definitely unique having to handle the quarterback spot, even for somebody who's a guru at it like a Sonny Dykes is.
All right, when we come back, we got a couple more things to get to. But in the 4 o'clock hour, we'll have in studio Mack Rhoades, Baylor's Director of Athletics. He'll join us around 4:20. Also, in just a moment, Rob Bolton from PGAtour.com, his thoughts about the PGA Championship at Valhalla coming up, where he won his last major, I believe it was, 10 years ago in 2014. We have not taken a break yet. We need to do that now. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas, Dr. Steve Childress, and other dentists and his staff, specialist techs, and those dental hygienists who are really good at what they do. They've given me peace of mind when it comes to my dental work, which I used to always, I got to tell you, man, I always just kind of, man, what's next? Root canal, tooth pulled, something. Where a cavity would have been a good thing because all the other stuff was pretty major. He gave me a game plan, stood right there and said, tell me what I actually need to do and what does it mean? And if I don't, what happens? And he did. And I've been doing that since 2020. Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors. Baylor Athletics Trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, we're going to hear from Rob Bolton. We're going to have Rob on just a little bit early because we have the transition from Garrett setting up the Zoom with Coach Dykes. Emery's in the chair. He's going to be a part of this segment as we pick our 4 players for the PGA Championship at Valhalla in Kentucky. And then also, Mack Rhoades is going to be here in a few minutes to walk in the studio, and Emery warms up his seat for him. Rob Bolton, though, joins us live on 365 Sports. Before we get to the picks and the fact you've won now what is like a Red Auerbach, Boston Celtics, John Wooden, UCLA championship run, this is a course that, man, beautiful. I watched an overview with all the, drones. Rob, is this a course where they can go low, or is this going to be one where you hang around 3, 4, 5 under?
Afternoon, gentlemen. And you had me at Red Auerbach and John Wood. Please go on. It's fun playing with you guys. I'll leave it at that. So it depends. Because it's going to be soft, yes, it should be there for the taking in doses, in degrees. Whole locations will be typically, in my opinion, aren't enough of the storyline in real time. We think about other team sports and we zero in on some of the minutia and the detail, and fans. Many more fans in other sports are more familiar with the nuance of, let's say, a two-seam fastball, or how a hockey player maneuvers a stick when he crosses the blue line or something. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, in golf, we don't really talk about hole locations enough. So hole locations on a course can provide some of the best defense. Now, they have to keep it fair for the first 2 rounds. Hole locations are pretty much in the same spot. So the first 2 rounds especially, scoring could be really favorable. And that'll allow guys to loosen up a little bit. At the same time, it's the best field in any tournament all year round around the globe. So it won't be that easy. Scoring should be over par to par 71. It's a little bit longer this time around at over 7,600 yards. I don't know if length matters anymore, guys. I think we should all come to appreciate and respect that because everybody's hitting it long. But because it's going to be soft, it's going to be a challenge for the setup crew to give the course some teeth. But it probably won't really show off until the weekend.
All right, I have 5 names here who are going to pick. Craig Emery, Paul, you, and me. I've put a number next to each one of them, 1 through 5. Garrett, you give me a number, and whoever you give, like 1 through 5, that whoever is matched up gets the first pick.
Let's go number 3.
Number 3, Paul gets the first pick, so Koepka and Jenna Sims are gone. Now another one.
Not in that order.
Another number?
Yeah.
Let's go number 1.
Number 1 is Craig at the number 2 pick.
Then 4.
4 is Rob with number 3.
2.
That's me.
Then 5.
And then Emery will get back-to-back picks, okay? All right. This is interesting because you have the combination of the live players coming in with some of them, of course, major championship wins, and also some of them are red hot. So, Paul, no, you don't count. You're taking Brooks.
I am. He's won 3 of the last 6 of these things. Yeah. This is his tournament. There's no reason to think that he won't at least do well. I know he'll make the cut. He
won last weekend too, didn't he, Rob? At 54-hole live tournament.
Yeah, in Singapore. Yep.
Okay, Craig Smoak.
Give me Brooks Koepka.
That's what I just took.
Oh, sorry, Scotty Scheffler.
Scheffler. All right. Rob, you're next.
I got to go with Roy McIlroy.
Damn it. Fellas. You think there's just going to be any distractions because of his personal life, what's going on? Or is he now more focused?
Well, personal life is always a distraction no matter the profession. But right. As Rory has said throughout the live situation, he's very good at compartmentalizing. And as anyone who has ever, just as a human, as a person, no matter your profession, has been through or been attached to, adjacent to a divorce with a child, this isn't something that just happened. It happens over time, and look at how he's been playing. So I am not worried.
He's also Irish, and they can compartmentalize better than most.
I am going to take.
Nice point.
Yeah, he just played well. Got overrun by the train of McElroy, but I'm going to take Schauffele. Emery, you get 2.
I'm going to take Ludwig and Rahm.
Oberg and John Rahm. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to take Max Homa. And now it's, Rob, it's your turn.
Yeah. I love how Colin Morikawa is entering this chip on the shoulder, and he's of incredible value on the betting boards for anybody who can get into that listening and watching. So Colin Morikawa.
All right, we go back to number 2. That's Craig.
Give me Bryson DeChambeau.
Boy, he was so completely overlooked at the Masters. And my goodness, played incredibly well for a pretty long time. Okay, back to you now, Paul. You get back to back.
Give me Sepp Straka and Joaquin Niemann.
You're going live. You have 2 live golfers. You traitor.
I know. It's tough.
Okay. All right. So back to Craig now with his 3rd pick.
Cam Smith.
Rob, you're next.
Yeah. He's just a big game performer. This puts me at risk, but he's number 12 in my power rankings. It's Wyndham Clark.
Man, a feature on him. And he went and saw, and a lot of players do, a lot of people do, but he went and saw like somebody that got him straight mentally about his golf game, correct? He had a lot of stuff in his head?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a really compelling life so far, losing his mom while in college and switching schools because he wasn't comfortable at his first choice. So it's like he's already undergone a lot, but his trajectory has been strong, and he's sort of fulfilling that, albeit a lot in the last year. Won the U.S. Open last year, and yeah, it basically just locked him in, and now he's been incredible.
All right, it's my turn. I like this guy. I don't know. He's probably not among the top 10 or 12 names, but I just like the way he plays. I'm going to take Thigala. And now, Emery, you get your last 2 picks.
I'm going to go with Hideki.
He's been kind of quiet with his name lately, huh?
And then I'm also going to go – I'll go Tony Finau.
Good pick. Man, he has not played. Rob, I'm going to probably take him, but has Kentley been kind of erratic, or is he just not at the top of the board much?
I think just expectations are so high. It's surprising when he's not in the top 10 every week. You know, it's one of those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine. He's at the focus of the situation as it concerns the tour and live and all of that, and maybe a bit of a distraction, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with him physically as far as we know. So he, in a weird way, does present as a sleeper for the PGA Championship. He is not in my power ranking.
He's not? Well, I said I'd take him,
not.
so what the hell, I'll take him. So I got him. So back to you, Rob.
Yeah, he was on my extras because I go only 15 deep, and obviously our draft is 20, so I had to have a couple of extra names on there. I'm glad you kind of made my decision for me, Smokey, because I was down to 2, and I'll take the other guy who's the local hero, Justin Thomas.
Yeah, man, that's another guy that seems like Liv has gotten a little bit into his mind, where he hasn't played really well, and there you go. So the hometown kid and Justin Thomas. Back to you, Craig.
Tommy Fleetwood.
I like the way he plays golf. Just love it. Paul, you're the last one. Go ahead. You're going to take Sergio now since your team live?
Absolutely not. I'm going to take Victor Hovland.
Okay. Here's a guy that sometimes gets a mush head. All right, Rob, fire away.
There's lots of I mean, Hovland should be in the first round. And the fact that he's last, well, he's Paul's 5th pick if you're including Sims among his among the investments this week, air quotes. Yeah, I wrote about Hovland this morning in Sleepers. In fact, as we're speaking, I think they're working on it, and I have him as propped for or touted for a top 5. And a lot of reasons for that. I just love the fact that he took some time off, got right, led the field in proximity last week at Quail Hollow. Like, his golf game is fine. It's in between his ears, and he needed a reset. I'm investing in that, so I like that at the end. Straka was bold, Paul. I think you were just looking at my power rankings, so I appreciate that, pal.
Yeah. I was.
Yeah, so Fleetwood, Craig, I mean, you know how I feel about you. I love you. And you always throw question marks out there, and somehow they answer the bell. Maybe not all at once, but they do eventually. And so that you got Smith in there, 3rd round, and Fleetwood. I mean, you got a really solid team. I always look at you as a dark horse, and this week probably a front runner because that's a really strong lineup. Obviously, Scheffler at the top. Smokey again. I mean, you got Theegala in there. I mean, he was number 13 in my power rankings. He's going to win a major at some point, and his trajectory, a little bit like I was speaking about with Wyndham Clark. Theegala is basically in the middle of it. It's a really sharp upward arrow because he's been so talented, the pedigree and everything as an amateur, and just coasted into the pro ranks. So I would say 3rd round makes sense for him, but people who are maybe not as familiar might think that's a reach. That is not a reach. And he's got Cantlay, again, a little bit like Hovland, comes in quiet, but always dangerous and never slumping. So, again, strong. I mean, nothing wrong there. And Emery, I mean, you won the U.S. Open last year with Wyndham as part of this draft. You know, Aubert and Rahm, 1 and 2, they could have gone 1 and 2 overall, and you got them in the swing pick for the first time around. Matsuyama's health is always a concern, so that's, in my opinion, should never be drafted in this format because of that. But then again, if you happen to connect with him, you know, when you have Finau anchoring that roster, suddenly you are a threat. So this format always caters to all of us looking really good on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Well, here's the thing. Let me ask you this. Of the guys who were not picked, Fitzpatrick, is it On, Spieth, Lowry, and Jason Day? Because Jordan Spieth's been a mess too. Which of those 5 or 6 names did we miss the most on?
Yeah, it's hard to be, you know, I tend to have a longer appreciation or a great appreciation for maybe hitting when you're lucky rather than missing. I mean, Jason Day is this isn't necessarily breaking news. I don't know if it's published, but Jason Day is my outright sleeper at 5,500, plus 5,500 to, you know, for the PGA Championship. His form is outstanding upon arrival. Again, to win. That's difficult. I was considering him instead of JT at the end. So if Emery would have taken JT and you would have gone Cantlay, I probably would have gone Day in that spot. So I think he just missed our draft. And then Matt Fitzpatrick, you know, he's a guy who makes most cuts. So in this format, he's exceptionally valuable. We just chose not to lean on him this time. Mm-hmm. All of the others have value had we gone maybe another couple of rounds. So, you know, guys just outside that bubble. But that's the beautiful thing about this championship. I once wrote that while the U.S. Open identifies the best golfer, the PGA Championship tends to identify the best golfer right now.
Okay.
And there's so many great guys, so many guys playing really greatly on the way in to this thing, including Day, including Fitzpatrick in his own way. And so when we think about guys like Cantlay and Hovland not playing well, suddenly they're indicted. But in a sense, the tournament should still reward them because Valhalla it's not a pushover, but it's going to probably be the easiest of the 4 major tournament hosts this year. Wind won't blow. It's going to be soft, as I mentioned. So it's going to be a place for guys maybe even to find their games as long as they have the confidence upon arrival. Hovland has some of that after last week. Cantlay has never lost on it, so maybe he finds his game just because of the comfort level playing in a big tournament like this.
All right, Rob, we'll put up all of our picks on Twitter, and we'll get reaction. One note for those who don't know, you could finish 1, 2, and 3 with 4 of your golfers, but if any of your players miss the cut, you're done. It's just one of the unique parts about what we do, even if it's unfair. If it's unfair, even reason why we should do it. Rob, we appreciate you very much as always. Thanks for your time.
You got it, guys. Thanks again.
Rob Bolton. By the way, Valhalla refers to the mythological Norse hall of slain warriors who rest under the watchful eye of the warrior god Odin.
I mean, everybody who's seen Thor knows this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch Thor, so there we go with that. Tiger won there in 2000 when he beat Bob May in an unbelievable classic, went extra 3 holes. Rory's last major, hard to imagine 10 years ago, was there after he won this past week, of course, at Quail Hollow. When we come back, Baylor's Director of Athletics just around the corner, Mack Rhoades. This is 365 Sports.
TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. 2 things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sick'em365.com.
We mentioned earlier in the show today the couple of different circa sports and casino in Vegas, and also Brett McMurphy with the Action Network HQ wins in the Big 12, at least the odds. Here are the teams around the country and where they stand from his outlet. 5 teams at 10.5, with Notre Dame, along with Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, joining that group. That includes Georgia. Bama, Clemson, Florida State, K-State. There's a whole chunk of them at 9.5 all the way down the rest of that list. Not everybody will do that. Some will be above it, and some will completely fall apart. But there you are with that list.
That's the whole idea. Is you're not going to be right, or you're going to be right, or you're going to be wrong on these. So yeah, that's
which of them most likely will not. It's not so much win 9 or 10 games. Which of them on that list, if anybody, has the biggest opportunity to not even be close?
I'm gonna. This is gonna sound weird. I'm gonna say Michigan. They've got a lot of unanswered questions. They lost a lot of people. I don't want to say like what is not close, but I mean,
like 7 wins or less. Like 7.
I don't think they're gonna go 7-5. Not with their schedule, but
Craig.
I think LSU at 9.5. I mean, they got a lot of questions to answer. I don't feel as though they've necessarily answered all those this offseason. So That's one. I mean, without looking at their schedule, because of course that's another element to it that you suddenly look at it and you're like, oh, wait a second, they don't play so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so. They get this team at home. So maybe if I looked at the schedule, I'd feel a little bit differently. Everybody else there, though, I mean, LSU still makes sense being there. If I had to pick one, that's the one that I probably feel the least confident about right at this moment.
Garrett, you know all about what they have ahead of them. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think Craig's right. You look at 9.5. I'd feel comfortable with LSU getting about 7 wins,
Really?
but I wouldn't take 9.5. I don't. No.
What would Miami be? In your opinion, is that about right? 9.5 with the
Given all the money
quarterback
they've
and all.
spent.
Yeah,
It better be.
Better be, yeah.
Better be is not my
Martinez
question.
and Cam Ward. And,
Better be is not my question.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, okay.
They
All right.
absolutely should.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I think that's, remains to be seen, obviously, like all the rest of them. But, I mean, if that's not your expectations, go win 10 games with what you just invested in the offseason, then what the hell are you even doing right now?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of Mario Cristobal leading your program if you're not expecting about 10 wins off of the investments that you made? So, yeah, I think that aligns with what they've gone out and done, similar to an Ole Miss being there at the same spot with all that they've gone and done in the portal, all the noise that they've made. So, yeah, I mean, nobody else just outright jumps out to me the same way. Like, I kind of sat there and stared at Kansas State a little bit.
Not a lot of room for error for Kansas State, is there, with that number right there?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be good. There's just a lot of hope on Avery Johnson's shoulders. Like, I know they have other players at other places, but they do lose some contributors that were significant. So that's one I just kind of side-eyed a little bit. Like, maybe that's one I stew on a little bit more of the summer and think of them as more of like a 9-3 type of a team. Because if you're going over, that means 10 games. That means 10 wins, baby. That means you're going 10-2. This ain't no bowl game. This is 10-2. So it's hard to say who the heck knows in the new Big 12 of what all that actually looks like.
And there's another Utah. That's another Big 12 team right there in that same little batch with K-State.
Yeah. So I mean, again, those are the two that have kind of stood out as far as being the favorites in the eyes of the pundits. It's been consistently those two with a little sprinkling here and there of Oklahoma State or even an Iowa State at times. And I think I'm probably missing Arizona as well. But, yeah, everybody else, I mean, that seems about on brand for where they should be as far as expectations go. But, man, Texas at 10.5. So they can go in the SEC, go 11-1 in year one?
When
Is that what we're saying?
2021 was announced, I would have thought if they would have done the odds based on what we knew at the time of who they had been, even if there would have been an uptick, you would have probably had 8.5 or 9 at the most. Most, but that's how much they've changed the perception and also with what they have coming back from what they did a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely stands out. Just like, damn, all that talk about the big, bad, scary SEC, and they're rolling in with expectations to win like 10 games right out of the gate. And I know the schedule is favorable on paper, but that's still just interesting to see that. And notice anybody missing that?
Here's somebody, Roger just said.
Has a connection to Texas that's also making the same move that's usually on these top lists. There's no Oklahoma on this list because they're, I think, expected to win like 8.5 games based on what I saw. So that's their new life and their new set of expectations. And I know there's a lot of OU fans that feel like they'll crush those. So we'll see. But, there's definitely one school that's going in hot. And one school that's flying under the radar a little bit, which is foreign territory for the Sooners. So that element of it is interesting as well.
So of the teams that have the 10 wins, you have 2 from the SEC, 2 from the Big Ten with Oregon added, Texas and the SEC, and Notre Dame at 10.5.
It's that is confidence in a team. I'll tell you that looking at schedules, the top 5 is top 5 toughest schedules today. If Oregon does not get over 10 wins, given the schedule, they and Texas got that first year, welcome aboard, guys. Here's this. Also a big bag of candy. And where Oklahoma and USC kind of got hey guys, welcome. Here's this and a bag of dirt.
Yeah.
Remember Nebraska in the Big Ten when then when they went through COVID, when they wanted to restart the season, they said, okay,
kind of like that.
We're going to roll the dice, and here you have everybody. We're now joined in studio. Mack Rhoades, Baylor's Director of Athletics. Yet again, we had to go through contract talks with him, but he's back.
It's good to be here. This is the first time I've been in the studio in this seat. Usually I'm sitting next to you, but that's because Craig's never here.
Yeah.
So you're always on vacation when I come.
Yeah. Just on the beach.
I mean, it's a nice surprise to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess. So.
out there working on my golf game, you know.
There you go.
All right, it's the summertime, so what the hell's going to happen that puts everyone in a panic this year?
Yeah, I'm not going into Mexico, I can tell you that. we're gonna play it safe, and we're going to stay in town. So,
all right, this deal with whatever is the speculation, rumor, or thoughts about anything of a breakaway. Does a breakaway, in your opinion, with the way the Big 12 is set up, include the Big 12, if in fact there is any kind of super type league that's formed?
Yeah, I mean, right now I don't believe there's any type of conversation, discussion, in terms of super league. I think everybody's focused on the Power Four and really getting through what's been the headlines here recently over the last 2 weeks, just the litigation that we have in front of us and kind of this new frontier, even though we've been really in this new frontier with name, image, likeness in the transfer portal. But it will continue, I think, here soon into the future when we think about revenue share. So I think the Big 12 is very much part of it, certainly along with the ACC and obviously the Big 10 and the SEC.
So the settlement, when it comes here, whatever happens, that puts out a fire, obviously, because that's one thing that's gone. But it does raise a lot of questions. But is it one of those things that may be more good news than bad, even though the amount of money that's going to have to be paid out, and that it will at least be able to point people in a direction of where it's going, especially ones who had been stubborn to release themselves from the old idea of what college athletics is?
Yeah. So I think a great way to look at it, right, is there is no perfect solution. But I think this stops the bleeding. And, you get hurt, you go to the emergency room, right, and the first order of business is stop the bleeding. And then afterwards is additional refinement, additional work, et cetera. And I really think about, maybe this potential initial settlement as giving, all of us, in the industry an opportunity to continue to move forward in a, healthier way than maybe we've been, navigating here in the last couple years. So it won't be perfect. It's not going to feel good to everybody. Change is hard, but I'm certainly a proponent of settlement and in landing in a better place than where we are today. And, living in uncertainty, it reminds me of COVID. That's hard to do. And so, for me, for Baylor Athletics, we just want to know the rules of the game. And once we know the rules of the game, then we're going to go attack and thrive and, do all we can to be really, really successful in whatever that model looks like.
So as you said, there's no one-all solution, and there could be further lawsuits, again, that upend things down the line. But this would at least give you a little bit of a reprieve, right, of just the ability to kind of know for a little while and take a deep breath collectively.
Yeah, I think, one of the things it does, right, is, certainly, you're not gonna go into any settlement unless you have some type of durability, some type of protection from future antitrust lawsuits. So that's one. That's really helpful, right? And then, right, rules, guardrails, right, how to share revenue with student athletes, and I think that's going to have an impact on name, image, and likeness. And I think, that is going to, put some parameters around it, because it's been the wild, wild west when we think about name, image, and likeness. And so I think those things are really, really good. What this potential or a potential settlement doesn't do is it doesn't solve the employment question, right? And so that will be something in the future that will continue to have to resolve. That could come in the way of federal legislation. I I think there's opportunity with the settlement for there to be federal legislation that comes alongside that still remains to be seen. It's still in conversation. We've got the election coming up, and so a lot of fluidity there, but there is potential for some federal legislation. And again, we're going to have to deal with the employment issue. We're going to have to deal with, certainly along with that, the collective bargaining issue potentially, right? Can you have collective bargaining without employment status? You can. So, maybe that's a pathway when we think about, protecting student athlete rights, et cetera, for those that is really, really on their mind. So it's fascinating to be in this space, to live in this space. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. And, and we want to be a driver in it. Baylor Athletics wants to be a driver in it. And I think with Dr. Livingstone, President Livingstone, her position with the NCAA, I think, because of my time in the conference, we've got a seat at the table, both within the conference and nationally. And again, I think, we have an opportunity to be a driver.
I know you have a follow-up, Craig, but did I just see a note about a non-conference schedule with a team that's about to join the ACC?
You did. I mean, we want to go there, sure.
If you don't mind,
So we just, completed. We've been working on it for probably, 6 months. It's amazing. We're back to 6 months, right? When it was COVID, we did it in a week.
Yeah.
But now we're taking 6 months to schedule games. But we just signed an agreement with SMU, a home and home. And so, they would we'd go there. I believe it's in 25, and they come here in 26. So, and what's interesting about that, right, is they're now, as you alluded to it, Smokey, that they're a Power Four, and so now we'll have 2 Power Fours on our schedule, both in 25 and 26.
Very nice. When we all sit around and talk about possible solutions to all the problems at ALU, the easiest solution, it seems like on paper, is we'll just make them employees. It seems like it'd be simple. Can you explain just for all of us novices here of why that is such a hurdle and why that's not as easy as it sounds? Is it a financial thing? Can you just go into the complexities of that? Because it does seem like that's the way that you would most easily get through a lot of these issues, but am I reading that wrong?
No, I'm going to have you talk to our Vice President for Human Resources at Baylor, Cheryl Gotches. And, we actually, have a working group that has taken a really deep, hard look at it. And, man, I think the processing of it, right, when we think about, for example, we have 525 student athletes, give or take, right, plus or minus a handful. But, now all of a sudden making them employees each and every year. All right, now are they hourly employees or are they salary employees? If they're hourly employees, like what's on the clock, what's not on the clock? Who's managing that? Who's looking after that, right? What happens if they don't show up for practice or they're late for practice or they don't go to class, right? All of those things, all of the tax implications. What's taxable is tuition and fees, is room, book, board, right? All of that, gear that you wear. And so there are so many tentacles to it, so many complications. And I'll say this, we've had a group of student athletes that thought they wanted to be employees. It sounded really good. And then we took them through, hey, this is what it means to be an employee, and none of them wanted to sign up for it.
I think that a lot of people, again, because that's the short, they'll just be employees. They're going to be that. And, this company, Baylor University, is going to take on 525 new employees. Well, just watch a game show. Like, if you win a car in a game show, you don't just get to take the car. You got to pay the taxes on the car. That's the gear. And you guys give out a lot of gear because guys need it. You could tax the helmets, right, that they use and all these other things, right? So there's too much complicated things, I think, for people even to understand that it's probably not as much of a benefit as you would think, right?
Yeah, I think, can it be done? Certainly. The infrastructure that would be required to do it and do it well, extremely complex.
And the IRS is not going to help you guys, create a special thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe so. Yeah. So, I mean, we have talked about it, in depth at Baylor, and can it be done? Yes. I think the driver behind employment I would hope would be, hey, protecting student athlete rights. Mm-hmm. And so back to what we just talked about previously, is there a way to do that? One, if we settle, if there's a settlement, there will be compensation. There will be revenue share, right? And then is there a way to potentially, protect student athlete rights, give them a voice, right? If there's that group of people really advocating for that, I think there is. I think there can be a collective bargaining mechanism without employment status.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Baylor Hotline, in-studio appearance with Baylor AD Mack Rhoades on 365 Sports.
I just have one more legal question. With you as a private school, how much more unique does that make your situation? Maybe are there, I think of the National Labor Relations Board in Notre Dame or Dartmouth. Is it more unique as a private school, some of the challenges you're facing, or am I misreading that situation?
No, I think there's some uniqueness when you think about particularly a private school and the employment status and the National Labor Relations Board. So yeah, there's some uniqueness to it. You think about the USC employment matter right now, and so how that pertains to USC, a private school within a conference, and I haven't looked at now the Big Ten. It's them and Northwestern are the only two privates, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
In the Big Ten, without actually looking, and how that impacts them versus how it impacts the public institutions. Now, they'll argue that those public institutions are secondary. Those student athletes are secondary employees to private entities, to the NCAA and to the Big Ten Conference, so that it does apply. So there's all of that's part of the conversation and discussion.
If you do the revenue sharing, which is happening, and all the other things that might happen, and then you have now your own department for that, the name, image, and likeness, the announcement yesterday with David Kay and others, is that on top of the revenue sharing? Will NIL be also still something athletes can get on top of revenue sharing?
So it's a great question, and let me start here. I would say, and I think this is a legitimate and accurate statement, that when we think about all of the Power 4 institutions, what is there, 70 of them now?
Something like
that, okay. I would say, I would venture that, probably 90% of them, 85 to 90% of them, the path that we are on is not sustainable for us. When we think about name, image, and likeness, what is being paid to student athletes, right? For them literally not doing anything. It's a pay-for-play model. And then if we add on top of that this revenue share, so if those both combined, right, I don't think it's sustainable for most of us. I think there's literally a handful of schools that can navigate that financially. And so when you think about the future of name, image, and likeness, if we settle, if we have revenue share, we've got to figure out how name, image, and likeness is not on top of that revenue share. And or maybe there is a carve-out for maybe commercial true NIL, like it was always meant to be, where a student athlete is actually doing something to earn compensation with a third-party commercial-type business rather than, a payment from a donor to a collective to to a student athlete, again, pay for play, that we're going to have to figure out. Because if we don't, if it's on top, it's not a sustainable model for any of us.
Then you just hired David or promoted David into that position, among others. Is that because it's going to be around for a while, or is that to be proactive for whatever the future is with that?
And again, I think name, image, and likeness will absolutely continue to exist, okay? And I think it will exist within an athletic department, and I think it can exist or potentially will exist third-party commercial, whether or not that's done through a collective and or whether or not, hey, people decide to do that with their multimedia rights holder. Right? We need somebody in our department that has their eye on that ball 100% of the time. And David Kay has been exceptional. And he's served in that role for probably, the last 3 months, 6 months, somewhere around there, and he's been fantastic. The volume of student athletes, along with GXG, along with John Passavant, that he sits down and meets with and explains and helps provide opportunities. We just added Haneen to the staff as well to work alongside David. So that is something we're really, really excited about. And again, we need somebody focused on that, 100% of the time.
So, with collective bargaining, without there's no union to collectively bargain with. You're just collectively bargaining if you do that with thousands of student athletes, which is even more complicated because at least with a union, it's like this side versus this side and their representatives, and you take it back and people vote on it. It makes it complicated, but just to simplify, revenue sharing would be kind of where you'd find the payments for players like you would be doing now. And then NIL, like you said, a carve out would be separate of what it was intentionally intended to be was, this athlete for this car dealership and here's your money.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I feel like I tried to follow you.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like you summarized it well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we haven't talked about is Title IX.
Oh yeah.
And how does that apply? And the answer to that question right now is we don't know. We haven't received guidance. We hope to receive guidance, but if we get to a point in place in time where there is revenue share, how we share that revenue right now, like there are no parameters, and in terms of how we do it and how will Title IX gender equity impact that formula, we don't know, and so this is going to be again a new frontier. And I'm certainly hoping when we think about Title IX that we get some guidance before we get into this, rather than hey, we're going to get guidance because now schools are going to have lawsuits, right? OCR is going to be sending out letters saying, "Hey, you're in Title IX violation." I'm hope that we can do it reverse and we can get some front end guidance rather than back end through potential lawsuits.
Back to 25 and 26 SMU, which you announced here on the show, and I know Brent put something out, and of course SMU did too. That's two Power Fours. Non-conference games. Isn't that what you want more of? Because Auburn scheduled both those years too.
Yeah, I don't know. And I say that because the whole dynamic of going to 12 teams in terms of the CFP, and so how that impacts, how that plays out. We have the Big 12 football scheduling subgroup which I've been blessed to be a part of. We're going to begin meeting again. To really think about, right now we have, a mandate that you have to play at least one Power Four. We know that we're playing, contractually, we need to play 9 conference games. So right there, you're playing 10 significant games out of a 12-game schedule. Those 2 years, we're going to 11 of 12. And so, I think it remains to be seen, and we're going to have to carefully follow it and watch it when we think about 12 teams getting into the CFP again, access. When we think about the new, the next 6 years, right? We've got 2 years, this year and next year under this current agreement. And then the new, right, access is all up in the air. That hasn't been decided. We think it's going to be 5 plus 7, but, who knows? So I think it remains to be seen. We've got Power Fours, I believe, scheduled 25, 26, 27, 28, 4 years, right? We're holding on 29 because we want to wait and see. Pause for probably the next 6 months, see what the conversations look like in the Big 12, and then maybe get a better feel in terms of CFP going from 4 to 12.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us in studio at 365 Sports. You mentioned your mark and the Big 12 moving forward. I thought that when the new deal was approved, the Big 12 and how the revenue or how the big schools would get paid moving forward with the college football playoff, was there any initial blowback from directors of athletics that the Big 12 was not going to be on the same level as the SEC or the Big 10?
It didn't feel good. I mean, we're all competitors, right? And
that's kind of what he said.
I mean, we're all competitors. We're all fighting for our institutions, right? We all believe that we have as much value as other institutions, other conferences. So yeah, from that perspective, didn't feel good. Didn't like it. But it's where we are. It's the deal that we have. I think we have opportunity to improve it. We have a look in. I'm all about, Big 12, we've really got to focus on football. We know basketball, right? We can sit here and talk about that and argue best basketball conference in the country. And it's been branded that way for years. But we need to be really focused on football as well. We need to find a way as a conference to elevate football. And you think about going into this season, and I'm certainly, haven't looked in depth to the other conferences, but I would suspect when you look at the Big 12, and this is a positive but also a negative, 1 through 16, there's very little margin, right? We're all going to have an opportunity or a chance to be really good. Do we have any great teams? I don't know that we have any really bottom teams in this league, and so that makes every single conference game a dogfight. And we got to play 5 of them on the road this year, so be interesting. But the Big 12, we've got some opportunity. We've got to make sure that we improve our football brand.
Mac, most basketball off seasons come and go, and Coach Drew's name gets thrown out for this job and that job and whatever, and you guys, you can go, well, that's a good chuckle, and then you go on about your summer and live your life. This year obviously was not like that when Kentucky kind of entered the fray there. What was that like on your end, especially knowing that your great relationship you have with Coach Drew, but knowing that, a legacy program in college basketball is interested in your guy is a good thing and a terrible thing, but it for you, I know personally it had to give you some sleepless nights.
Yeah, I think, for me personally, I was at peace throughout, whatever that was, 3, 4, 5 days. Because one, really grateful for the relationship that Scott and I have, the friendship that we have, very transparent. We communicated throughout the entire process, right? We certainly talked about the Kentucky job itself. We talked about quality of life. We talked about family, all of those things. And I had great respect for the way, Scott handled it. I thought he was really thoughtful. I thought he was prayerful with his family. And again, we had, some great conversation. And I think the balance as you're in the moment is, hey, doing what you can, have those conversations, be present, making sure that you're communicating, but also, like, if Scott or any head coach decides to go, you better have a plan in place. And so there's that balance of, hey, you're having those conversations. You want that individual, you want Scott to know that you love him and you don't want him to leave. But then simultaneously, you're like, if he decides, hey, God's really calling him to Lexington, boom, we got to be ready to go. And we really have to be ready to go in this day and age when we think about transfer portal. And so, that was the balance. But, man, I was at peace. And, I told what I think is really fortunate is all of the conversation was between Scott and I. And it was one time where his agent called just to really check on me, just say, hey, you doing okay? And I said, hey, absolutely. I love Scott. I know he loves me. And if he really believes that's best for his family and that's where God's calling him, then amen. But he also knows that we want him to stay and that he has an opportunity for legacy here. Doesn't necessarily have that opportunity at Kentucky. And then again, Scott and I talked about, hey, this kind of equation of quality of life plus competing for championships equals X. And, competing for championships is a pretty high market at Kentucky, but you know what? Baylor's not bad. We've won one here recently. And then, taking into consideration quality of life for him personally and for his family. And so, again, I am so grateful and thankful for the way Scott handled it and for the relationship we had prior to, throughout those 3 to 5 days and certainly now. And, Scott pivoted, once he said yes, boom, now we got to finish out recruiting and we got to hire staff. And so excited about that pivot and the new staff in the recruiting class.
Yeah, that could have been just like, who knows? I mean, just like you look around and there's nobody else in the room, even though I know you would have had a candidate immediately ready by the end of the day or whatever it might have been. With Dave Aranda, 5 or 6 months since he sat in your office on a Saturday morning and gave you the presentation. We've discussed this with you before. We've discussed it with Dave. They have gone heavy portal. They needed to. Where do you see what he has 5 or 6 months later? Not so much talent level, but where that program is with him and his new role.
Yeah, I think one, everything that we talked about, Dave, Jovan, myself, right? There was an article about it, day of the West Virginia game, the plan, all of that. He's delivered. He's done everything he said he was going to do. When you think about personnel, when you think about roster management or acquisition of talent, I thought they had a really, really good spring. He's not done, probably still adding, one more piece in terms of the roster as we speak. So he's done everything that he said he was going to do. And, it's been talked about. I think it's been good for him to be back in football and the edge that just naturally, organically creates when you just think about accountability for the defensive unit, accountability for the position group. I think that's extended to, accountability to coaches, et cetera. So, look, I said it before, this is going to be a really difficult league to win football games in, but he's done a great job, up to this point in time. Really like all of the staff members, like what we're doing in the recruiting space for 2025. I think that's been really positive. So there's a lot of good vibe and some momentum right now. Gotta win games.
Every day you wake up, something changes in college athletics. Every day.
Every day, yes. Love it. Bring it on. Let's go. Keep going.
Are you sure you want to use love?
Love.
It's a strong
word.
Very, love it.
That's a very emotionally attached word.
Love. Here's what I was talking to Brent as we were walking into the
Brent
studio.
Ingram, Media Relations.
Yep. Brent does a great job. Right. Makes all of us look good. But
and you're not just saying that because he's here.
Yeah. No, not at all. And he's my ride home. So, I love having, 20 balls in the air. I've been an athletic director since the end of the 2005 year, and I don't know that it's ever been crazier, that there's ever been more balls in the air for all of us. And so, but that's opportunity. That's exciting. Baylor, we're not trying to be like everybody. We're still going to have some uniqueness. But if we're going to do this, let's have some fun.
And I said this before. First of all, thanks for coming in the studio. You didn't build that new football stadium. I know that was before you got here, or Foster, or the football ops, the Fudge Football Operations Building, or what you're doing with the indoor, so you could just kind of hang out.
Yeah, I mean that was never the purpose, and I'm not one. Our staff knows it, that there's no such thing as complacency. We've got to be grinding, working, every day to be elite, to be the very, very best we can be. I'll say this: I'm really grateful that we built both the Foster Pavilion and the Fudge Football Development Center and started those projects when we did, and so grateful again to Paul and Alejandra Foster and Jeremy and Christy Fudge. But it's going to be really hard right now to build facilities in the midst of all of this conversation. When we think about revenue share, and again, I'm not confirming, I'm not denying published reports, that number of $20 million annually, right? Name, image, and likeness, how that works. It's going to be really difficult for institutions, I think, to be able to do all of that and still build buildings. And so I'm grateful that we were able to get those completed, start them, get them completed, and I think it positions us well.
We will see you in Vegas here sooner rather than later, and you are not allowed to go to the west border of Texas. You're not allowed to cross the western border of Texas anytime in the near future.
I am going to find a way to get to New Mexico, or at least enjoy some mountain air somewhere.
You deserve it. So, thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate the three of you.
Mac, we cross off all the list, I think, of everything you could imagine, plus some new stuff. How about the SMU story, 25 and 26 in Dallas in 25, and then also here in Waco on the 26th. This is 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers, here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Hope you enjoyed that segment with Mack Rhoades and covered a lot of ground there and tried to cover as much as possible, but obviously a lot of things going on right now. I just saw this. We were talking about the Big Ten. He was wondering if he was missing anybody as far as the private schools. Northwestern and now USC are the only private schools in the Big Ten. But I double checked that while we were talking. But he was right, so I didn't correct him there. And SMU Baylor, that's going to be exciting. I think with the ACC flavor, although who the heck knows, but that's going to be a much bigger deal than it was when they played here last about 10 years ago. So here is a few different things going on right now. If you're just joining us on Tuesdays and Thursdays around this time, we do this segment and just take a look around at various headlines and get into it with a lot of NFL action ongoing and a few other stories of note as well. And I'll go ahead and start off with this one because this is probably the most unique one. McGregor ISD.
Yeah.
Which is just down the road from where we are right now. It's one of the local high schools, local towns. They have announced the hiring of former Baylor baseball coach Steve Smith as their next high school baseball coach there at McGregor. So that's where Elon's got his Tesla set up, is in McGregor, Texas, actually.
SpaceX.
SpaceX, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah,
that's where they got the big
shoot
SpaceX.
Teslas in the sky.
Yeah, no, you hear the rumbling, though, whenever they're doing work. You can hear it in Waco. But, yeah, that's where he's got his SpaceX set up, is in McGregor, Texas. But Steve Smith, I mean, I know for a lot of people they'll be like, okay, so what's the big deal here? But longtime Baylor baseball coach, hadn't heard his name in a while. And here he is. He's going to be coaching McGregor High School. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
I mean, they hired a guy who knows a lot about baseball, that's for sure. I am
just random. It was just so random.
He loves this area.
Yeah, he loves the area.
Not surprised if he still doesn't have a home here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think he lives in McGregor. I think he lives around there,
that makes
as a matter
sense.
of fact. But he has a very dry sense of humor that sometimes can be taken as he's being abrasive or abrupt. So you know him. You know what I'm talking about.
We've had some heart-to-hearts.
Yeah, he ultimately, though, really does care about his players and really does coach well, and he's very, very, very smart. So for high school baseball, it's just one of those things that he's probably going to have to adjust a little bit of his coaching style to do high school kids as opposed to scholarship athletes, but I think he'll do great.
He was a hell of a coach. He and Ian McCall got sideways, the AD at Baylor. And then he's now been an assistant and an analyst at the Major League Baseball level. He was at Ole Miss or Mississippi's Auburn. He was at Auburn as an assistant coach on that staff.
And then he's in Tennessee somewhere, right?
I think he's probably at the point now where, I want to keep coaching baseball. It's in my blood, and so he'll do that. That's a fun story right there.
Yeah, that's just very random, and this is off the radar. So that's kind of what the goal is, but there's not always stories like that are just totally off the radar as that one is. So, yeah, congratulations to him on that. I also found this very interesting. Mikael Harrison-Pilot, who was a member of the Temple Wildcats. We brought up one of his former teammates, Jared Wiley, and obviously had some other very talented players around him while he was playing at Temple. Quentin Johnston, another one of those. But you guys may remember he originally signed with Houston. He had a bunch of different offers. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school in the class of 2023, and he goes to Houston, and I guess the coaching change and just Willie Fritz coming in, he ends up hitting the transfer portal. He's actually going to walk on at Texas Tech, despite the fact that he had a number of offers in high school from various programs. He is going from scholarship at Houston to now a walk-on at Texas Tech. Obviously, he'd have the ability. He'll earn some money. We know that with their setup. Yep. He'll earn a little bit of money and probably have the opportunity to earn a scholarship. But he was from the class of 2023. It was a 4-star wide receiver. And along with that move to becoming a walk-on out there in Lubbock, he apparently is also making the move to safety. So that is also a part of that move there. But just kind of, you wonder if like there's just not spots, or
I would think right now there's not spots.
Right.
So the thing about now with the walk-on thing, it's going to be different. I think in the next iteration, walk-ons is going to be a very small category. There's not going to you're not going to have the old school Texas A&M 12th man. Like this guy was a hell of a guy at a 6-man high school in
Nebraska.
Worked his You're not going to have, but walk-ons are probably going to go.
That tradition at A&M will probably continue.
They'll
but I
find
get
a
what
way.
you're talking about.
But like the walk-on, it's going to be you're going to be a preferred walk-on even on the 12th man team for the most part. And with Mikael Harrison Pilot, all really he has to do is wait until somebody jumps in the portal, and then they'll be like, okay, well, that guy's gone. We kind of wanted you anyway. Here's your scouting.
He's a jack. He's a jack of all trades. Torian York was straight up a baller on defense, a teammate of his, and Harrison Pilot. You know, he was good. It wasn't like he was a quarterback or a wide receiver, he did everything well, and I think he could turn out to be a ball hawk for them in the secondary once he gets that opportunity, which I'm sure he'll force his way into doing that.
Yeah, he's a great athlete. I think that they also value size, like having premium size at positions, and so I think he'll make for like a nice big safety, but with obviously wide receiver athleticism, so you can see why the fit makes sense there, just with his measurements and athleticism. So yeah, just found that very unique because here's a guy who goes in the portal. I remember initially is like, hey, TCU should look at him, or Baylor should look at him, or whoever, just the local teams that made sense. And then sure as, you know what, here he is, and he is walking on at Texas Tech, although that could turn into a scholarship sooner rather than later. But still interesting stuff there. Meanwhile, we already talked about a couple of these with the Oregon State, Washington State. And I guess what I was confused on was they announced some of the games, but these were the home games. That was the clarification that I was missing, that blank that I was missing. These are the home games that had yet been unsettled that they now have officially settled. So that was my confusion there. Meanwhile, the 2025 Maui Invitational field is set, guys. Not sure how excited you are for this, but I know Scott Drew, very excited. Baylor, NC State, Oregon, Seton Hall, Texas, UNLV, USC, and Chaminade, the field for the 2025 Maui Invitational.
Sounds great. I hope that they can – I don't know if they can rebuild the facility in Maui or if they're going to have to do it on Oahu again. I would assume probably on Oahu again. These things take time.
Yeah.
Because there's not like Maui's a pretty small island. It's not like they can just move it to another gym.
And that is because
of the fires that they had there. So, but yeah, I think it's great. I think that the Maui gym, that one really sets off the season really well. Everybody loves playing in it, and I think the coaches love it because there's like an old school nature to it where, sometimes you have to change like out in the hallway and get ready for things.
Like a high school gym tournament.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that, you get the benefit of being in Hawaii, but you also have to work a little bit more.
Yeah.
Isn't that where Ralph Sampson lost to Chaminade?
Probably. I don't know, but Chaminade's in the tournament.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that Ralph Sampson had that unbelievable run, of course, at 3-time or 4-time player of the year, and they got stunned in that tournament long time ago, but that's what I always remember about that.
So there's kind of a sprinkling of various notes. Also, this one a bit bigger on the national scale. ESPN has officially signed Jason Kelce to a multi-year deal. He will be joining Monday Night Countdown, which will lead into Monday Night Football. He'll also appear on the halftime broadcast, and he will, in addition, be a part of the ESPN and ABC coverage of the Super Bowl in Los Angeles in 2027. So I'm trying to do that in my head. What is like 59, I think, is maybe what that is. LXI, is that right? 59, I think, or no, it's 61. I don't know. I don't know my Roman numerals off the top, but LX1.
LX1. Yeah, that's 61.
61? Okay.
Yeah.
Man, how do I'm impressed myself with how I can decipher Roman numerals still at this point, but 61 in 2027, so that's a couple of years away. He'll be a part of that coverage as well. I do believe this pushes Robert Griffin out of a chair as far as Monday Night Countdown goes. And so he is out officially. There was some scuttlebutt about that being the case, but I don't think it was like put out there exactly how that would come about, but this is how it comes about. Jason Kelce, now a member of the media, no surprise there, and I think he'll probably do pretty well for himself. I don't know about you guys.
I think he's going to be his personality, sense of humor, not afraid to make fun of himself.
I do hope this does. Like, I don't want, and I said this before, I don't want Jason Kelce just to do like this sitting at a desk analyst stuff
with his suit and tie on. And,
like that to me is. I mean, he'll do great at it.
Sure.
I just think it's, he's got that kind of Peyton Manning vibe of where he's funny, he's good, he can do a lot of things. So let's make sure he does something. I'll pitch a show and I'll do one with him if they would hire me in a heartbeat of just going around, getting into tailgates, like chugging beers with Jason Kelce and experiencing all the different, because what he did in Buffalo just shows that this is a dude who is an everyman.
I think he might have to calm that part down. ESPN will probably want to calm that part down. At least one when it comes to game day.
Hey, come work with me, Jason. I'll let you live your life.
Yeah, so he is going to get started. He's in. Robert Griffin III is out. We'll see what RG3 ends up doing. But obviously he's got a pretty big following as well. So knew Kelce was going to grab somebody's spot, would grab a primetime spot. And so there he has it on Monday Night Countdown. Meanwhile, have y'all seen the big to-do over Dan Quinn and his Washington Commanders T-shirt? You might have missed it a few days back, but the Redskins were having
the Commanders.
The Commander. That's such a lame name. I've never liked the name. It sucks. I don't like it still. I'm never going to like it. The Commanders had a media session, and Dan Quinn, their new head coach, was talking to the media, and it was noticed right away that he had a new T-shirt that nobody had really seen before. And this new T-shirt was the W logo that they currently have and have been using the past couple of years. But what was unique about it was there was a feather coming off, an Indian feather, if you will, similar to the ones that were on their old logos. There was a feather or feathers coming off of the W logo, so it was basically a mashup of their old logo with their new logo. And of course, we know that they had to change their name, and there was a long time where that was bandied about and debated, and they finally end up doing it at a time when everybody was changing everything seemingly all at once. And there's been a lot of talk ever since then about whether or not they would potentially go back to the name. And many people viewed this as a trial balloon, that he didn't just make this T-shirt himself, right, and just wear it, or this wasn't just we didn't realize there's the Indian feathers might get people in a tizzy, but now he has has basically apologized, I think, for wearing the T-shirt at this point, saying that wearing a T-shirt with the portion of the old logo was an attempt to bridge the past and the present. He recognized that there's a lot of layers to that, and so it was a great lesson for him, is what he said. He said, what I really hate is that any attention that would have been taken away from these rookies and this awesome crew, nobody wants to do that. But that's led to this big debate about what Washington's attempting to do here, especially with new ownership, and whether or not they're trying to just slowly but surely sneak maybe even the name back in.
It was a trial balloon.
Yeah, I can't see them getting the name back. I think that's too far down the road. But could they have feathers on the W logo? I don't know. That doesn't seem offensive. I'm also not their audience when they're trying to measure that type of a thing. But it's just interesting that he had to comment on it, because, of course he did, because clearly people picked up on what he was wearing.
And he's also required by NFL contracts to wear NFL licensed things that you can buy on NFL Shop. And that was clearly made somewhere else. And, I thought it was cool looking personally. I
thought it was fine, dude. But, I was hey, that should be the new logo, honestly.
Yeah, but I do think they're not going to be the Commanders. And I think that will coincide with the stadium. Those things will happen together.
Why don't you think they'll be the Commanders? Because people just don't like it?
The people don't like it, and it was the honestly, they had this whole contest, and it feels like Dan Snyder goes, Commanders, because F them, that's why.
Yeah.
If they don't want this one, this is the one we're picking. It's bland, here we go, because he was so mad about them making him change the name, and he knew, like, he didn't come to selling it 3 months before he sold it. This is something that was been in the works maybe for a while, so he knew he was going to, I think there's all just a double middle finger to everybody.
Yeah, I thought about mentioning it last week, and then I just got caught up in other stories. So it's just interesting now that, like, any attempt is clearly they backed off of that. If they were trying to sneak that in there, they backed off. And so no Redskins coming back anytime soon. And whether or not they even have any remnants whatsoever moving forward, if they try to reincorporate that, it seems like they're on, uneven ground there potentially as well. So just a couple more notes here. And one of those is the fact that the NFL schedule is starting to slowly but surely leak out, and more games starting to be announced. And as it stands right now, the Thursday night opener in Week 1, you'll have the Ravens at the Chiefs, which is pretty spicy.
Yep.
Friday night in Brazil, which that'll be interesting to see what the just the atmosphere is like. Packers and the Eagles. Monday Night Football, we'll have the Jets at the 49ers as we get Aaron Rodgers' big return. But before we get to Monday Night Football, Sunday at 3:25, it's been announced Cowboys at Browns. That is going to be the season opener for
Tom Brady.
For your Dallas Cowboys. And the big note there, thank you, is that Tom Brady will be on the broadcast. That will be his debut. Stole my thunder there.
Sorry about that.
The sexy part of that is definitely not Cowboys-Browns.
No.
It is the fact that will be Tom Brady's first call as a broadcaster, so that adds a little something else to that game as well. They also announced Week 2 Thursday Night Football will be Bills and Dolphins, so not a bad couple of games for the Thursday Nighters, which were definitely very hit or miss. I don't know how often y'all watch those. Amazon did an okay job, but their matchups were just not very good most of the time, especially the later in the season they got. So there you go. You psyched about Tom Brady being on the call for your Cowboys, Paul?
Sure. I hope he's good. I think he'll probably be great at it. I mean, tell Tom Brady he can't do something, he's going to do well. So, so Nikki Glaser thinks so.
Said that,
no, I didn't mean to rip off her joke there, but I think I'm going to miss Greg Olsen personally. I thought he was really hitting his stride, and he's really smart. I hope that he's on other games. And I actually, if I were Sunday Night Football, I would hire Greg Olsen, but that's that's just me to get him on a premier game. But yeah, that's great. I'll get to watch the Cowboys' first round of disappointment, year 30.
Yeah, I mean, it's at about 30 now, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. But the big thing there is absolutely the fact that that's Tom Brady's first game more so than it's Cowboys-Browns, although I'm sure there will be a great audience as always for that.
I had a Kathy Ireland poster on my wall the last time they won the Super Bowl. All right? That's a long time ago.
Not a bad choice.
No, but
at least it wasn't Farrah Fawcett, and that would have been another 15 years.
Yeah, it would have been really been waiting a really long time for that. All right, then later on tonight we've got. One thing. Did you have any thoughts on Jared Goff's massive contract from yesterday? 4 years, $212 million, $170 million guaranteed money for Mr. Jared Goff.
Not a bad deal for a guy that was shipped off because the coach didn't want him.
We'll talk to John McClain about this, but I will say this. Leaves keep falling, Jerry.
Yeah.
And this is all...
Let some leaves fall off the trees.
RJ Ochoa put this perfectly on Twitter yesterday. Their plan is always to push it to the end to make it look like it's the player and not them that's being obstinate. But it can't always be the player. It can't. They've got too long a history. This is what they do, and there's no reason for it anymore. And they deserve what they get now with the salary cap and all this because of this ridiculously inane way of negotiating these contracts.
Yep, so the price just keeps going up for everybody when it comes to quarterbacks, and Jared Goff, good for him. He is a rich – he already had number one overall pick money from a few years back, and now he's got this insane amount of money. Finally, NBA tonight. I don't want to talk about last night and whatever happened with the Mavs and OKC game. That was just a fever dream, I think, that I was watching. But tonight, Indiana at New York. That series is tied up at 2 apiece, so that ought to be hot atmosphere at Madison Square Garden. Tied up 2 apiece, Pacers and Knicks at 7 o'clock on TNT. Both NBA games on TNT. As in the nightcap, Denver having even the series now. They're back at home. 2-2, Nuggets and the Timberwolves. That starts at 9:30 on TNT. And then in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, you got another doubleheader. Bruins at the Panthers. Florida can close out that series up 3-1, and at home, 6 o'clock on ESPN. And then in the nightcap, Vancouver, the Canucks at the Oilers in an all-Canada matchup. Vancouver leads that series 2-1. They're on the road, 8:30 on ESPN. And there's a few things that are off the radar. And while one Dallas team was very disappointing last night, the other wasn't. The Stars win big, 5-1, so they're up 3-1, and they can close it out tomorrow night. But, yeah, definitely a 50-50 night for the DFW for sure.
No question. Then the Mavericks, had it right there to check a 3-1
Free throws,
let
baby.
It go. Yep.
Free throws.
We'll let it go.
Is Chet Holmgren the unhealthiest looking premier athlete you've ever seen?
Yes,
yeah,
for
he
sure.
might be.
Well, no, he's definitely up there in the conversation.
He's clearly healthy.
Yeah,
he's great,
for sure.
but he looks sickly.
Yeah,
he does have that element to him. He's obviously in incredible shape to be 7
tall
foot
and
whatever and be what he is. But I'm glad I've seen far less of that awful commercial, and that's what I've celebrated here lately. The commercial with he and Shea. What was that? AT&T, I think it was. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Burn that one and never play it again.
All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Neil Blackman. He writes for Saturday Down South. We'll also, as well, hear from John McClain, Paul's Top 5, and so much more. Craig, thank you very much. Off the Radar, loaded up on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. And this is 365 Sports. I don't even know where we are. We've missed so many breaks. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers, get it. Go to marcos.com for more information and find the deals online for you to pick up at a store near you and or they will deliver to you. It's Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers, get it. Bob Mock owns 5 stores in Waco, Hewitt, Woodway, Robinson, China Spring, and also in Belmead. And my favorite is the pepperoni and sausage Magnifico, like the thin crust. Love all of what's on the pizza. You might want something that has less meat or more with much more vegetables. They have wings, salads, sandwiches, soft drinks. What you need, they have it. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations around Waco, hopefully one near you. And if there is, have a chance to go by there and pick up a pizza or have them deliver at marcos.com.
It's the season to rev up your drive with Alan Samuels with the new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Your ultimate destination for unbeatable deals and top-notch service. Looking for a reliable ride to conquer these beautiful spring days? Look no further. The powerful trucks and sleek sedans are the perfect SUV. We've got the perfect vehicle to match your style and budget. Over 300 new vehicles to choose from. Now's the time to make your move. Enjoy special discounts, low financing rates, and incredible incentives. But hurry, these offers won't last forever. Alan Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. Neil Blackman of Saturday Down South. One of the most well put together college football websites that there is. Neil, thanks so much for being on the show, especially you guys cover the SEC in particular so well, and put a nice little fun spin on it all the way around. Thanks for hopping on the show. So schedules, TV schedules and all that starting to come out now. And if you look at the way things are with the new league, with the 16 teams, what are the things that kind of jump out at you about how this season's going to go?
Well, I mean, I just think with the expanded playoff, it's so interesting to see kind of whose schedule is manageable. Like you look at Tennessee and you see the over-under on them at 9 wins, right? And you say, what's it going to take to get into that group that's considered for the playoff? And when you look at Tennessee's schedule, quite honestly, it's pretty manageable. Like if you find a win against Alabama, which is a big if, there's not a ton of it's not Florida's schedule, right? I mean, it's not what Alabama has to face. So I think, to me, it's kind of manageability of schedules that jumps out. And I think it's going to be that way for at least a little while because there's enough teams at the top that are capable of kind of making that playoff push. I mean, there's 10 teams that have win total projections in Vegas at 7.5 or higher.
Neil, one of those teams that's up near the top is Texas, and it's understandable they're rolling in with a lot of momentum right now, even though they are, coming off of a draft where they lost a ton of players. They can reload pretty quickly, given the era that we live in now with the portal and everything else. But Oklahoma, there just seems to be, I guess Sooner fans would classify it as a disrespect, but there's definitely this level of expectations that are not quite what they're used to. Do you see it that way as well, that you think Oklahoma's going to have a hard time adjusting in comparison to Texas, or how do you view both of those incoming here in year number one?
Man, I think Oklahoma is the ultimate kind of, I don't want to say, maybe they're kind of the X factor in that league. Like, would you be stunned if they go 7-5? I don't think I would. Right. I think their fans might be, but I think I wouldn't be stunned by that. Then again, Brent Venables, they went 10-3 last year. And while there's a lot of people talking about how they're replacing, basically the entirety of the offensive line, they did nice work in the transfer portal, and we've seen how quick that could go. Michael Tarquin has been a good starter in the SEC already at Florida. Spencer Brown's over from Michigan State. He can play. We know Branson Hickman can play. So, I mean, you look at that offensive line group and you say, I think that's a competitive group. And then Brent Venables is probably to get the defense right. And the biggest thing he's done culturally right is make it so there's competition defensively at Oklahoma. And he talked about that. He said, hey, year one, we knew who our starters were. And that's good. And it's also bad because it means that, there's 12, 13, 14 guys you trust, and that's it. He says he trusts 22 guys on their two deep on defense now. And he's one of the best minds in the sport. Like, it wouldn't stun me if they won 9 games. But I think it's just, can that offensive line hold up in that league? And we don't know. But But in a world where there wasn't the transfer portal and they lost all these players, yeah, I mean, it'd be a rough entry. I'm not so sure it's going to be, and I think they're going to be one of the most interesting stories in the league for that reason.
We know why Gabriel left for Oregon, because Oklahoma felt like they had their quarterback for the future. If Gabriel was the quarterback, would our expectations for Oklahoma be the same or better?
I think they would be better because there'd be some continuity. And then I think probably they maybe get a little more credit for what they did in the transfer portal to protect Gabriel from an offensive line standpoint. So I think better. I also would have loved to see him with like Deion Burks, who I think is a guy who's going to really take a production leap that we see when players leave kind of middling programs and go to really good programs. And like Deion Burks is always open, right? He's going to catch 50 balls in the SEC. There's not some magic wand that's going to make him not open.
Neil, the Florida Gators have the most brutal schedule that I guess Satan has ever created, because that's terrible. I mean, it's just so bad. And Billy Napier is in a make or break year in many people's eyes. Maybe not his athletic director's eyes, but it almost doesn't seem fair, does it? To like, hey, you've got to be better this year. Oh wait, the SEC just threw these bricks at us.
Yeah, it's the most difficult college football schedule I've ever seen. And there has been a lot of, Twitter isn't real life, but there's all these fans trying to tell lies to themselves about how, it's not that bad to start if you just win the Miami game. First of all, I do think if they win the Miami game, certainly the narrative changes a little bit if they win that season opener. And I do think he will have support from Scott Strickland as long as DJ Lagway doesn't leave the program and transfer to Texas A&M. And as long as DJ Lagway is on the field in some capacity and shows recruits, hey, that's a guy I want to go play with. I think Lagway was the biggest recruit that Florida's landed in a decade. I think it now becomes, can you keep him with NIL? Graham Mertz is going to start. Great guy to teach Lagway some things. And Florida, might be able to grind out bowl eligibility if they're better on defense. But with that schedule, I think the reality is Napier has to show the fan base that Lagway is the future. Scott Strickland will defend him. The big X factor at Florida has been Sass, who's the president of the university and was not the guy who hired Scott Strickland and was not there when Napier was hired. If Ben Sass sees a 5-7 product and wants to change, there will be a change.
Neil, we know that A&M burst onto the SEC scene with Johnny Football and the Heisman and all the craziness that came with that. Then there was obviously the big falling apart of the Sumlin era, and then the Jimbo chapter that's now come to a close. It seems to me that Mike Elko is not flashy, but that's not really what A&M needs at this point, and maybe it's good to kind of be in, I guess, some ways flying under the radar. Do you view it that way at Texas A&M right now, and just where do you sort of see them in the pecking order, especially knowing that they're about to be crowded here in the Southwest area with a couple of old pals now joining the fray?
Yeah, look, I see that the over-under on their wins at 8.5, and I tweeted yesterday I think you got to go under that. But I also said that a year ago that I thought Mike Elko was the best hire in the ACC. I think we could prove to be the best hire in the SEC. He is the embodiment of what has worked at Texas A&M in the past. He's a guy who, it's 100 degrees in College Station and he's outside underneath the hood of his car fixing it, right? Like, that's the kind of gritty dude that I assume can win there long term. And I thought they did a nice job in the portal. They had to because of all the departures. We will see, if he can rework that year one miracle that he pulled at Duke in College Station. I think it'll be tougher, but I think the long-term diagnosis at A&M is good. I think getting the culture back from what it was late in the Fisher era when, I think tire fire is charitable. is step one.
Neil Blackman, Saturday Down South with us on 365 Sports. How would you, at least so far, without a game being played, kind of rank where Kalen DeBoer has put Alabama post the greatest college football coach of all time walking out and retiring?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would rank, I think they're underrated. I think 9.5 is too low. They added an All-American on the offensive line. I think that's huge, right? Because Jalen Milroe was fourth in the SEC in yards per attempt under pressure last year. He was second in the SEC in yards per attempt when he wasn't pressured. So fourth's pretty good. Second, behind the Heisman Trophy winner, is a lot better. They added Caden Proctor, the rare boomerang transfer, coming back to Alabama. So I think they're going to be able to block better. They gave up the 11th most sacks in the SEC last season. So that was definitely the weakness of the football team. We saw how easy Michigan was able to pressure them in the Rose Bowl. And, I think that's the big thing for me is can they protect Jalen Milroe? The fact that he's on campus and is a guy that, is a top 10 Heisman vote getter, I think is huge. They lose Caleb Downs, obviously a big deal, but I think Kalen DeBoer brought a good staff. There is certainly continuity of talent. There wasn't the huge portal exodus post-Saban that a lot of people anticipated. DeBoer did a nice job of keeping the pieces in place. Look, he's not going to be Nick Saban, and the sooner that everyone comes to terms with that, the better. Then again, they may never come to terms with that in Tuscaloosa, and that's okay. That's why we love Alabama football, because they're fanatical. But, I think they're in a good position this year at least, and then maybe the hard part starts.
Well, it's like eating at a 4-star restaurant every night for 20 years, and then, you'll probably get some 4-star nights, but there's going to be some nights where you're at Chili's, and that's fine, right? It's fine. Eat at Chili's. Yeah, I mean, triple dipper dinner, man. Come on, let's get it done. I'm curious on your thoughts. I know it's outside the SEC, but Miami and. They have done as much portal work as anybody and swung for the fences when you talk about Ward, Martinez, Sam Brown, like all the guys that they've got in there, Simeon Barrow, everybody who's come in. Is Mario Cristobal out of excuses on his coaching with this roster the way it's built?
Yes, absolutely. I think on paper, Miami is the best team in the league. I think they will be ranked in the top 25 on paper alone. If you look and trust the talent composite at 24/7, they're going to be second behind Clemson entering the season. And, despite all that, this was a team that struggled to get bowl eligible last year. And so I think we will see. They did swing for the fences in the portal, as you said. I don't know how much I like Cam Ward. That's a guy I've got to see it to believe it against good defenses. And he had some rough games against top 25 defenses last year, including just a 2-interception disaster against Stanford defense that was in the top 15 in the country in success rate, and has nowhere near the type of athletes, although probably better scheme, that Cam Ward will face in the Swamp week 1. So let's see what happens in that first game in Gainesville. I think it's a huge game for both those programs. And I think if Mario Cristobal goes to Gainesville and loses to a Florida team that most people don't think is going to a bowl game, it really ratchets up the pressure in Coral Gables, not from the administration standpoint, but from the narratives that are being sold on the recruiting trail. Because Mario is a great recruiter, but at some point, kids want to win.
Neil Blackman with us Saturday Down South. What are your thoughts about eventually we had Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, on with us earlier, and we asked him about, you hear about this Super 2. In fact, Craig had a nickname for it back when it was called, he called it that. Do you feel like that's imminent, or do you feel like that's more just kind of thought and maybe what some people may want?
I think it's right now. It's what some people want. I do think that we are trending in a way where what some people want or things we don't think are imminent become imminent really quickly. Case in point, right? They expanded 12, and there was immediate discussion. I mean, the story about 12 lasted how long, guys? 3 months, and then they talked about maybe expanding more. So I think the trend towards the Super League is, I think it's trending that direction. I just couldn't put a timetable on it right now to say, hey, this is going to happen next year, or in 2 years, or in 3 years. And I think what happens in the NIL atmosphere and how many guardrails are put up, whether Congress actually does something, which, we all know how that goes. But, that will also dictate maybe what direction this heads in.
Neil, thank you. Great to have you on. If you don't mind, we'll try to have it more often with you, a segment on our show as we get closer to football season and throughout the fall.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the time, and I love the show.
Thank you very much for saying that. We appreciated the segment. Neil Blackman, Saturday Down South. We had Cole Thompson on yesterday. When I reached out to him, he mentioned that he loves what we do on 365 Sports. We appreciate those of you who support us every day, thanks to what Neil said, too. If you haven't hit the like or subscribe button, it's there for you. We appreciate you doing that, and spread the word as we continue to surge into the summer here on 365 Sports. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie running the mothership, and Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina are a part of what we do here on the set every single day. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, joins us on 365 Sports. John, your thoughts about the Jared Goff contract with the Lions?
The Rams gave up on him. Sean McVay didn't want him after they played in the Super Bowl. It was the lowest scoring ever. The Patriots beat the Rams. Wade Phillips did a great coaching job. It worked out great. He gets Matthew Stafford. They win the Super Bowl. Nobody knew how good Goff would be. It helped that they've done a great job of putting weapons around him. But if Jared Goff is worth being the second highest paid quarterback, I can imagine what Dak Prescott is going to get from the Cowboys that will make him the highest paid quarterback.
I'm going to ask you about that in a second, John, but you were up here for Pat Zachary's service. How did all that come out?
Well, it was Saturday, and Jay Black and the people over at Hall of Fame did a tremendous job setting everything up. Pat's son, Josh, and his wife, Ashley, and their 4 kids, they live in Austin. They oversaw everything, and Pat would have been so proud. I saw people that I haven't seen since elementary school at Crestview, at Tennyson Junior High. I'm sorry it was such a sad occasion that brought everybody together, but I know Pat would have gotten a kick out of it, and condolences, his sister Lynn, his brother, and his whole family, and all his friends. He's missed by so many people.
John, got some media shakeups going on, or some additions to the NFL lineup. Saw where, obviously Jason Kelsey now going to be joining Monday Night Countdown, and unfortunately for the Baylor folks, pushing RG3 out of the way, it appears, in the process. Also starting to learn of, Tom Brady is going to call Cowboys-Browns to start off his broadcast career officially there. Any thoughts on just, either one of those guys and how you think they'll do as media members moving forward?
Well, of course, I think Brady's going to do great. A lot of people think he won't. A lot of people thought that covered Troy Aikman, that he would be boring. He would be pablum like he was in interviews. Turned out he's done a tremendous job because he's not afraid to give his opinion when it's negative, but he doesn't cheap shot people. And Troy's earned a lot of respect, and I believe that Brady will too. And this has never been said about Tom Brady, but he's got big shoes to fill because Greg Olson has done an outstanding job. Now he's being demoted to number 2. They knew it was coming. When you're paying a guy $37.5 million a year, he's going to be number 1. As far as RG3 getting booted, he's still going to be on Sports Center. He'll be a lot of times, I'm sure, on College Game Day. He does a terrific job as an analyst. So I can't wait to see Brady, and I can't wait to see Jason Kelsey. Boy, when Travis retires, they're going to be going after him as well. There's so many guys so prepared today to go in a career of broadcasting because they've basically been auditioning for most of their career.
John, the schedule's starting to be released. KC and Baltimore. Browns, in fact, that's the game that Brady will do against the Cowboys on a Sunday afternoon. I know that the full release is Thursday, but there's been kind of a sneak peek. Is there anything that's kind of at least initially caught your attention?
No, and there isn't, other than Kansas City gets two toughies right off the bat, the Ravens and the Bengals. And Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I remember the Texans beat him at Cincinnati last year. And I think that's the game in which he got hurt. But he's back and raring to go. I can't wait till the schedule comes out because I'm interested, like in the Texans, who they open with, what nationally televised games do they have, when do they play the AFC South, what cold weather games could they be playing. And one of the first things coaches look at, when is the bye week? Because nobody wants it early. Some have to have it. Everybody prefers to have it around the middle. And that's probably the second thing coaches look at after their first game.
John, let's circle back to the Cowboys. And
Paul sounds so excited.
I mean, it's frustrating, John, to be a fan of this team.
They win a lot of division titles, are in the playoffs.
And then to cover them as well, and then watch them do these same things for 30 years and not change what they're doing. It seems like everybody else has figured out a way to negotiate with their players that doesn't involve necessarily pushing them into like near holdouts constantly or waiting till the deadline. What is it about Jerry Jones that he will take ideas from all over the league all the time, but when it comes to contract negotiation, they have a tried and true plan for themselves that always ends up this way?
Well, first of all, remember when there was a lot of talk they need to extend Dak Prescott, and they didn't do it. And the longer they waited, the more it cost them. And now the longer they wait, the more it's going to cost them. You know, what if he actually wins a couple playoff games? Can you imagine what they're going to have to pay him then? They would be really smart to overpay him because they're going to keep him. No matter what fans want him to start over or to promote Trey Lance, that ain't happening. So they need to get it out of the way. They don't need that distraction. And if they don't get him extended before the season, they need to say, Dak's going to say, I'm not talking about it anymore. Jerry, Steven, McCarthy, the players, we're not talking about Dak's contract because it's a distraction. They got enough of distractions just being the Cowboys and answering all the questions about why they choke in the playoffs. And that's why it wouldn't surprise me if while they're out there in training camp, if they don't get the extension done, and then they'll worry about CeeDee Lamb after the season.
John, we were discussing this. College football playoff announced some dates or at least sites of the next 27, 28, 29 with Vegas. What was it, New Orleans or whoever it was. But Dallas is a part of that. Like they're one of those in the 27, 28, 29. When do you think they'll host another Super Bowl?
That is a strange deal because they have the biggest stadium. The league can make the most money, but after the scandal they had on seats, after the bad weather they had, which is not their fault, Atlanta had bad weather 2 Super Bowls, but they told them they'd given them another one. With Jerry Jones's influence around the league, I am stunned they haven't gotten another Super Bowl. I haven't heard speculation on why it is, other than the fact they had a lot of issues when they had the last one. There was little things like staying in Fort Worth and Dallas and then having ice storms when you're trying to get to the other hotel. I remember we're standing outside of AT&T Stadium and the ice broke off the roof and came down and people were like, look out. If they hadn't have heard it and seen it, a lot of media people would have been hurt. And and I feel bad for them because it wasn't their fault. But and they will get one at some point, just don't know when it is. Right now, it seems like the Rams and Chargers have the IT stadium that's going to get every event it wants.
John, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always, sir.
Guys, Sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em Bears, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, Baylor alum, Waco Trib alum, and now writing a lot of stuff, columns and much more. We appreciate his time. All right, one note from me and also from us, and then we're going to go to Paul's top five. We will not have, shows on Thursday and Friday of this week.
Yes.
We're going to be doing a lot of technical work. There's going to be a lot of things we need to do when it comes to audio, microphones, camera angles, and also kind of just give us a little bit more space here in this beautiful studio that the owners have provided for us. Also, a note from me. I'm having prostate surgery on Thursday morning. I'm having it because my oldest brother, Robert, who passed away in April, contracted it back in 1819. He passed away in early April. My second oldest brother, Michael, at one point had a PSA of 8, had his prostate removed. I'm good, but I do need to get it removed for a couple of different reasons after a biopsy that looks like it's contained. I'm happy, I'm clear, I'm at peace of mind. But I'm having surgery Thursday morning, so I'll be out of pocket not only Thursday, but also Friday, but most likely all of next week because Craig and Paul and the rest of the people in the studio do not want me walking in the door with a pee bag.
It's true. I mean, most people would accept it.
Yeah.
But you're a very twitchy individual up here, and you've pulled the...
Especially today.
Yeah.
You are like...
Yeah, you're very twitchy.
You had a monster before we started.
You have pulled the plug out of your headset a lot.
Catheters are made better than ever before now. They are made better than ever before.
The reason I say that is, look, you pull the plug out of the headset, we plug it back in, there's no urine. So I think that's why we accept that. But we're behind you 100%, Smokey, and
I'm good. I'm actually good. Craig has asked me a few times, how do you feel about it? I feel good, especially after meeting the doctor that I will have perform the surgery on Thursday morning. My other point is, if you're a man and you get into your upper 30s or even 40s or whatever, go get your PSA checked. I'd had mine checked and really was really, really good. But because of what's happened with my older brothers, I had a biopsy. They did find a couple of things that kind of was a red flag. Everything right now seems to be contained. Had a full body scan. Everything was clear, but I'm taking it out. And so please make sure you go and get your PSA checked as you try to make sure that you stay below that number.
Yeah, so best wishes. I mean, obviously we're going to be paying attention, but for the audience, we just go about business as usual besides Thursday and Friday. Have some work done just behind the scenes and whatnot, and then Paul and I will carry this thing for a few days, whatever we need to do. I don't think there's a definitive timeline here, but we'll still have a show rolling next week, even though you're definitely going to be out for most, if not all of that.
I will be in the studio a week from today.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the only way you're walking through that door is when that catheter is not on you.
They have them strap-on now.
Okay, but that's not the term you want to use. But I'm just telling you, like, you're jittery. You're up here. You're high energy.
I am.
I
got a banquet tomorrow. Forget the surgery.
I know, but I do think because Amanda and I were talking about this, and she's like, "No, you can't let him." And then she's like, "But people do that all the time. They live with them." And I was like, "Yeah, but those people are not David Allen Smoak. Yeah. They're not him."
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens next week. But I hope to be back as soon as I possibly can, and hopefully, if you don't see me next week, because I get overruled sometime right after Memorial Day weekend. All right, Garrett, great job today weaving through Zooms. In studio, Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight, which will be at 10:30 tonight. And also it was great to see intern James, Jack McKenzie, and more. We're not done. Paul Catalina and the top 5 is next.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House here on 365 Sports. Today, the top 5 toughest schedules in 2024. Some different sites will aggregate them different ways. These are my top 5 toughest schedules. These are the teams that I think are going to have the toughest go of it. And this is the first year of conference realignment madness here in 2024, where we've got these gigantic, super bloated, stuffed conferences. And it certainly, for certain teams, has made the schedule really, really hard. Number 5, the USC Trojans. You see the song girls there? Well, they'll have a lot to cheer about if this schedule goes well, but LSU's on the schedule. Michigan's on the schedule. Penn State's on the schedule. Washington's on the schedule. A resurgent, I'm going to tell you right now, Nebraska in year 2 of Matt Rule, at the end of the season of year 2 of Matt Rule is when you don't want to play them, because that's usually when the team has figured themselves out, plus rivalry against UCLA, and then closing it out against a Notre Dame team that most people think, with Riley Leonard healthy all year long, will be very, very salty. So first year in the Big Ten for the Trojans, they did not draw the best end of the stick there, although that schedule, compared to some of these, believe me, our number 1 team would take that schedule over and over again and then hide bodies for USC for the rest of the time. They would have taken the rap for OJ if they could have gotten USC schedule. That's how bad our number 1 team's schedule looks. Number 4, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They open in Ireland against Florida State. They have Syracuse, who's got a new coach and will have something to prove, with Kyle McCord, who was on the top 5 yesterday, if you'll remember. They're at Louisville. They've got Duke at home. They go at North Carolina, to Notre Dame, at Virginia Tech with Kyron Jones in year 2 as the starter there, against Miami and Cam Ward at the end of the season, NC State and Grayson McCall, and then Georgia. That is a bear of a schedule. When, look, I'm just going to rattle off the quarterbacks here, and you can tell me if they have winning records as starters or not. DJ Uiagalelei, Kyle McCord, Tyler Shuck, yes, winning record as a starter, although that one's a little bit dicey. Malik Murphy, yes, winning record as a starter, although no, it's not that much. Max Johnson, I don't know, but again, he's been serviceable. Riley Leonard, Yeah. Kyron Drones got Virginia Tech to a bowl game last year. Cam Ward is one of the most sought-after players in the portal this year and has Miami excited for the first time in a while. Grayson McCall made Coastal Carolina alongside Jamie Chadwell, and then Carson freaking Beck. Bottom line, that is a tough schedule. Number 3, the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs. Look at little Ugga here when you finally get to see this picture. Look at little Ugga. Look at him. Look at that guy. Look at that guy right there. Don't you just want to give him some look at Ugga. I got to tell you, favorite college mascot by far. I mean, he's not bothering anybody. Look at that guy. Anyway, they open up against Clemson in a game which could not have more weight on Clemson because of the way that they've built their roster over the last couple years. But this is a huge one, and believe me, you don't want to give Dabo the whole offseason to think about just you. If he can get just one to prove Tyler from Spartanburg wrong, believe me, that's the one he'll want to get right off the bat. But they also have Kentucky with a guy who used to be in their roster at quarterback in Brock Vandegrift. They've got Alabama on the road in Jalen Milroe. They've got Auburn in year 2 of Hugh Freeze. They've got Mississippi State in year 1 of Jeff Lebby. They've got Texas on the road. They've got Florida in the cocktail party, which we'll see. Ole Miss on the road. Tennessee at home. Then, of course, they play the mighty UMass in the SEC. No. Every game's tough part. And then Georgia Tech, who was better last year with Haynes King as their quarterback. Georgia had the easiest path to the playoff last year and messed it up right at the end by losing to Alabama. They had a great schedule for them. This one is way tougher than last year. And you'll start to see a pattern. The SEC has gotten what it's wanted in big games every week as number 2, Boomer Sooner, Oklahoma. This schedule is Houston, Tulane, Tennessee, Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss. They play Maine in the this is a great conference. Mizzou, Alabama, LSU. Those last 3, Mizzou, Alabama, LSU, is going to be the proving ground for Jackson Arnold and the Sooners this year. Absolutely proving ground for them on, is this a team that's ready to take the next step into the SEC? They did Texas way more favors than they did Oklahoma in year 1 on the schedule, which, when you're Texas and you're kind of born with a horseshoe up your ass, it's not that surprising. And number 1, the toughest schedule, the Florida Gators. Wait, is that not the official mascot?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Is that not? Did I not get that right? It's just so hard to tell. Anyway, but here is the Gator schedule. And look, even as one of the world's leading Gator haters, I would say that I'm right up there. If there was a convention, I would be the keynote speaker about every 3 years. Just to keep it fresh, they'd bring somebody in like Charlie Ward or something like that. But I even think he wouldn't be that good. He's too sportsmanlike. I'm not. I would be great at that convention. Fantastic. But here's the Gator schedule. For Billy Napier, whose job is very much on the line, they open up with a little upstart program called Miami. Then they've got Samford, which should be a nice break. And then let me roll through the rest of their schedule to you and tell me where there's a guaranteed win after Samford on this schedule for the Gators. Texas A&M, Mississippi State, UCF, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, FSU. That is an absolute gauntlet. I don't think it's fair to maybe even judge Billy Napier on this schedule because I don't know if there's one that's ever been invented in the history of college football that's as hard as that. And if it was anybody else than these guys, then I would feel sad. But part of me even does because I have a lot of friends. I might even know that guy. I might have grown up with him. But there's nothing that they can do in my mind, to make it through this thing outside of a miracle.
Like they need to shove a virgin in a volcano, sacrifice a goat, pray to every god that's ever godded before to try and get something. Go to the crossroads, make a deal with the devil, have a Charlie Daniels type thing. That might be the only way that this schedule comes out great for Billy Napier, because it's going to be rough for the Gators. And they have a very good chance that of their 12 games, 10 of them will be against ranked opponents at some point during the year. And I'm only like saying that there's a chance that, say, Mississippi State, UCF, A&M may not be ranked at some point, but I do think that all those teams will be ranked at some point in the year, and all of them might wind up ending the year ranked. That's crazy. And once again, let's just get one more look at the official mascot of the Florida Gators. Right there. That's Garrett. That's official, right?
It looks official to me.
It looks official. I'm not wrong. It's official. That's him. That's him. That's this guy. That's the guy right there. All right. That's going to do it for us here on 365 Sports. Smokey's out for the rest of the week. And remember, Thursday and Friday, we are taking the show off for our annual spring cleaning. So we will not be on the air Thursday and Friday. But Craig and I will be on the show tomorrow. We've got Matt Fortuna from The Athletic and much more coming your way. This is 365 Sports. Have a great night, everybody.